What is up, sensational strangers? Welcome to a brand spanking new episode of The Strange Sessions. As always, I'm Kurt, and I am joined by my, I was going to say luscious, but that's
Whoa.
I was
that kind of show, Kurt.
No, I was trying to think of, was it luxurious?
Oh,
but then I went
I'm
to
not very
luscious.
luxurious.
My co-host, Krista.
Hi.
As always, Krista. Yeah, what do we got? Anything?
Wow, you just put me on the spot. I don't know. The weather is beautiful right now. It's probably too warm for you.
Yeah, it is. It is. I'm starting to hate it. But yesterday, it was perfect out. Yesterday during the day, it was perfect.
It was beautiful.
I think we're supposed to get like crappy weather this week, like lots of rain and stuff.
I saw that too.
We do have a shout out now, actually. Want to give? Oh, if you don't want to listen to this part of the podcast, Krista, take it from there.
Check the show notes. If you're on YouTube, they're down here somewhere. Or just pause your app. We have the timestamp of the actual topic start. We're just going to welcome a new stranger.
Just one new stranger.
We'll do a taste test and, I don't know, complain about life a little bit, and then we'll get to the topic. But if you want to skip ahead, we won't be offended. I had to remember to look at the camera and not the screen.
I never look at the camera. I like never.
And then I watched the video. I'm like, Krista, look at the camera.
And these lights are so bright. When I look at the camera, all I see are my glasses are so smudged, and I just want to clean them, and it drives me crazy.
Why don't you clean them then?
I will one of these days.
Oh, one of these? It would literally take you 2 seconds.
Shout out to our one new stranger this week, and that is Twin Arrow.
So did you look at them
Yes.
at all? They're a band
they're
or something?
a band
Okay.
In Bristol,
Ooh,
UK.
I didn't even look that far.
Yeah, and I haven't listened to their stuff yet, but
So
I
like
have
the whole band listens to
I
us?
don't
I'm
know.
Just kidding.
Maybe
I'm
it's
sure
the person.
one
Maybe it's the person that runs their page.
Could be, yeah.
But there'll probably be a song choice in one of the upcoming episodes because I haven't
nice.
listened to their stuff yet because I was bummed yesterday because we didn't have any new strangers, but then they did.
And then I sent you that
So
text.
Twin Arrow, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You guys, I think they said they're only in season 3, so it's going to be a little while before
Yeah.
they get here. But thank
they
you
got a
so
long ways
much.
to go.
Yeah, they do. Thank you so
Dang.
much. Housekeeping. The only thing I have is that once again I fudged up. And I did not look at my spam folder for the stories, our stories email address, and we had 3 stories in there that somehow got flagged as spam.
I was going to say, the episode was 2.5 hours, but there were Reddit stories in there, weren't there?
No, we didn't do any Reddit stories.
I don't know that we would have had time.
We wouldn't have, so it actually worked out okay because later this season, we're going to have another listener stories episode. And a couple people wrote and said that they felt bad because they forgot to send one in time.
Yeah.
So now you have plenty of time. It'll be towards the end of the season, but towards the end of the season, we will have another listener stories episode. So if you want to send us a listener story, the best place to send it to is our phone number or...
I loved our voicemails.
I know. I love our voicemails.
I love
too.
voicemails. Getting to hear the voice of our listeners is so special to me.
I know. It's awesome. But if you don't want to do that, and I don't blame you because I would never do that.
Same.
I did write to.
I want you to do it.
I did write to the Mash Matters podcast, and they read my thing on there, which was actually
That's
one
cool.
of the cast members, Igor. He was like the food server, but he was an awesome character on there.
Yeah.
Like he read my. And it's just like, wow.
That's a cool moment.
I said, that's so cool. But I would never leave a voicemail because I'm chicken about that stuff.
Same.
So I totally get it. But if you want to send us a story, if you want to email us a story, something that happened to you, it is thestrangesessionsstories@gmail.com. And you have a couple months to send it to us. So no hurry. That's all I really had for housekeeping.
Yeah, I guess we could mention that we'll be taking just a very brief break this summer. Mostly because I'll be traveling for work. So it's way out. June 29th would be a normal recording day for us, and we're just going to be taking that weekend off. So we'll release a side
session. The one that I really like, I don't have. So I think I accidentally deleted it. So I don't have the audio of the one that of the travel destinations.
Yeah.
So I'm going to see if I can figure out a way to get it, and if not, I'll just pick a different one. The one you suggested earlier was pretty good. So we'll just release side sessions that day.
It's kind of nice having that to fall back on.
It is. And it'll be nice having a little 1 episode break.
Yeah. Especially after traveling all week. I'm not going to want to do anything.
Where are you going?
Kansas.
Oh, back to Kansas?
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see Kansas.
It's going to be so hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a bad time to go. Actually.
It's so hot.
We got to
in
do our
Kansas.
whitewater trip, but we should do it
Yeah.
sooner rather than later.
I agree. Before school is back in session, because it'll be
Well, I'm
Whitewater's
thinking,
a totally different city when college is not like in session.
and we don't want college in session.
Right.
Okay.
It'll
okay.
be it's so crowded.
So you
not
think like June?
It's Whitewater.
You
It's
think
not
like June?
Yeah. We can go in
I
June.
would like to get into the library though,
I don't see why we couldn't.
because there's a.
It's not like it's private property.
I don't know, I'm sure listeners are riveted by this discussion, but there's supposedly like a demonic book
Oh.
in the library that you have to ask to see because it's in the basement in a collection.
Oh.
So
Okay.
we'll see if we can swing that.
It's
But
funny. I'm reading A Discovery of Witches right now,
Mhm.
and it's all about like a book that she finds from
we
the
have to
archives.
do like our side sessions today is about like mass hysteria / weird plagues, and there's like witches
the witch
always shows up. So
trials?
we got to do
Yeah.
something about the Salem witch trials.
Well, we could
at
tie
some
that into
point.
Whitewater,
We could totally tie it in, but I think Whitewater might be a whole episode on its own.
probably.
You know,
Especially
because
since we're traveling.
We'll have the audio of us talking and stuff. So
Yeah, I
we'll
definitely want to go on campus while we're there.
Yeah, I
It's
would
a
love to
really
visit
pretty
Whitewater.
campus.
Yep. You have
That's
anything
where I met
else?
Jim.
Aw.
No, I don't think so. Should we dive into our taste test?
Sure. I got 4 hours of sleep last night, so if I sound weird today,
He
or
falls
if I
asleep
sound,
halfway through the
if I sound-
episode.
I don't know what it is. Like I slept okay the last couple nights, and last night I think I conked out around 8:00, and I was up at 12.
Ugh.
Yep.
Ugh, that's
Yeah.
the worst.
Yep. Never got back to sleep, so I feel like a bag of flaming poop today. So
A hot dumpster fire.
a hot dumpster fire. Are you? Oh, what is on our cord here? That's all sticky.
That's just tape. Because I tape it
Oh,
to the table
okay.
so it doesn't move around.
I spilled
Works
something
really
on
well,
there.
as you can see.
Are we ready for our taste test?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm all like out of sorts today. Like I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do.
4 hours of sleep.
4 hours of sleep will do that, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about this taste test because this, I think, literally just came out this week. I saw it on Facebook. I saw people talking about it.
Is that your phone or my phone? Oh, it's my phone. Sorry.
Yeah, mine's on silent.
Every day. This is just to speak to our subscribers. Every day, multiple times a day, I get PayPal notifications for Ko-fi payments, and I'm
That's
just
so
like,
crazy. Thank you
I can
guys
never-
so much for paying.
I can never get over the fact that people actually pay for extra content.
Oh,
from
remind me
us.
to tell you something else when we're off.
Okay.
But it's nothing personal. It's just something that nobody's going to care about.
Okay.
So the taste test, it came out this week. I was super excited about it. Aaron actually got them already, and he was going to send me a bunch home with his parents, but I wanted to do them for our taste test today because I'm excited about this.
Hopefully
You'll be-
I am
think,
too.
No, I think you will be.
Okay.
Everybody knows Wisconsin, we love our quick trips.
We do. This is not very quick trippy, but last weekend at Quick Trip on the way up north for Mother's Day, I got a fruit cup, and it was some of the best fruit I've
Like
had
quick
in
trip
a
stuff
while.
like that. Like one of
The
the weird
blueberries.
things that I
Oh.
get from there that I love, it's just a piece of salami between 2 pieces of cheese. And it's good.
protein.
It's so good.
Yeah.
But I'm excited about this.
Blueberry Dunker donut
Potato
flavored
chips.
potato chips.
Yeah.
I mean, donut flavored anything.
And the
gets
thing
me
is, like,
excited.
Aaron got me a bag of the Rudy Tooty Fresh and Fruity strawberry pancake and bacon potato
That's
chips.
just fun to say.
It is fun to say.
Rudy
And,
Tooty
and so
Fresh
many
and
people
Fruity.
hated it, but I loved them. It like I love
They can see that.
like some people Aaron says they look really gross.
Oh,
But some
'cause
people
they have
are
blue on 'em?
Yeah, some people are so grossed out by the idea of a breakfasty tasting
Oh,
potato chip.
no.
But I think it's going to be amazing. I
I
love
love
their
the sweet and salty.
I love their blueberry
Well,
dunkers.
they are weird looking.
Yeah, he said it looked like mold almost
Oh,
on
they
there.
totally look like mold. I'm gonna pull out a.
Oh,
Oh,
they do look like
ew.
mold.
They look like they'd be blue cheese flavored or something.
They don't smell really. They smell
No.
like potato chips.
I get a little bit of blueberry. Let me take a picture.
Wow, these are some. Look at that.
Yeah, they look like moldy potato chips.
Like I love their blueberry dunkers. Like their blueberry donuts are like one of my favorite donuts.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
Oh wow,
They're very blueberry.
they're really blueberry-ish.
Blueberry-y.
Oh my god, these are good.
These are delicious.
They
Wow.
don't smell like blueberry, but they taste insanely like blueberry.
I get a little hint of the smell, just a little bit though. But wow,
These are really good.
I don't think I've ever had a. I mean, other than a potato chip covered in chocolate, I've never
Yeah.
had a sweet potato chip before. This is yummy.
these are like like I said, the Rudy Tooty Fresh and Fruity ones were like this, but they had like a bacon flavoring, like a fakin', as you would say.
Bacon. I like bacon. I don't like bacon. Wow. Yeah.
I'm gonna give these a 10. I mean, I think they're great.
I think they're really good too. Yum. I'm giving them a 10 too.
And some people said they're the grossest thing they've ever tried, and I'm like, I don't get it.
Nope. I'm gonna eat all 3. Sorry. It's annoying for people to listen to.
Oh my god, I like these.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised.
I'm trying to think of what you would want to pair this with. Like what kind of sandwich?
I was just thinking orange juice. I wasn't thinking a sandwich.
Oh, interesting. It's got that salty sweet thing going on.
It'd be good with a Monte Cristo
I
sandwiches.
was just gonna say that because that's kind of salty sweet too.
I love Monte Cristo sandwiches.
I haven't had one of those in probably a decade or more.
Oh my god, those are really good. Mm-hmm. Bring those up for Jim to try.
He's not a blueberry person. Sorry, that's so annoying.
I love blueberry. Anything
I still want
blueberry,
to try them though.
anything blueberry flavored, I absolutely love.
I love blueberries. I eat a lot of blueberries.
Yeah.
Like wild blueberries, frozen blueberries. Sorry, this is so. I just keep apologizing for how gross this is listening to me eat, but. Okay.
That was really
That's delicious.
freaking good. You can keep them.
Okay.
I gotta start eating better. I was talking to my friend Carly this week that I just don't feel good, and I think a lot of it is my eating
for
is
sure.
so horrible. So I'm trying to eat good breakfasts this week and
Good.
not ramen noodles
Oh,
or
yeah.
leftover pizza. So I'm trying to
Or
eat
donuts or cookies.
or donuts or cookies. So of course I stuffed my face with McDonald's before I came down here, but
Once a week is fine.
so this week
Eat a lot of vegetables. I eat a ton of vegetables.
and that's the thing is I love vegetables and I don't eat them. I think I'm gonna I bought frozen meatballs and I think I'm gonna make that crock pot meatball vegetable soup
that sounds
I
good.
really like. So I think I'm gonna do that. But I just gotta start eating better. And once I find out that my Badger care kicked in full time, I gotta go to the doctor because I am out of it like 100% of the time now. Like
Yeah.
just dizzy and there's something up. So we're gonna see.
Get it taken care of.
Yep. If I'm out of commission for a while, we'll have Corey come on and take my spot.
I don't think anybody would mind that. He does a great
Yeah, I
job.
don't think anybody would mind that. Do we have any other
I
housekeeping?
don't think so.
Do we have anything else to complain about?
I don't think so.
My health sucks. The weather.
I'm
It's
digging the weather right now.
It's supposed to be like humid the next couple days, and I hate that. I'm trying to get away from wearing these shirts like this.
Why?
I don't because it's like a weird. I don't know. I just want to.
It's very curt.
It is, but it's like a weird comfort thing. Like you got the people that only feel comfortable in hoodies.
Or
I only feel comfortable
black.
in these. Yeah, I
I
only
wear
feel
black
comfortable
every
in these
episode.
kinds of shirts.
I wear a
And
lot
the
of
other
black.
day, I ran to Aaron's parents' house because they're out of town, and I was doing something, and I didn't throw one of these on. I just had a T-shirt, and I'm like, I kind of like this. So I'm trying to get out of my comfort zone a little bit. But
Well, and that would maybe you wouldn't be so warm when it's warm
yeah,
out.
exactly.
Wearing 2 shirts and whatnot.
Plus, once we take the strange sessions out on the road,
Oh yeah, we're gonna really have to think about our fashion.
yeah, we are.
I'll just wear more black clothes.
I'll just wear these, my little flannel shirt things. Yeah, I don't have anything else.
Me neither.
Do you?
Nope.
What's the time? Yeah, you actually.
We're
have
ahead of schedule.
You actually have a story to read today.
I do.
I think this might be a shorter episode, actually,
That's
because
okay.
I feel like
Last one was 2.5 hours.
I know.
So I think we're
I
okay.
know. And thank you again to everybody
Yeah.
that sent in stories because that was an awesome.
That really
listener
stuck
stories.
with me. And I always watch our video afterwards because I don't know, I like to kind of see things that I could change with like the video and stuff. But hearing
Like
those
blur me
stories
out?
again.
Like blur me out
no,
of the video?
blur me out. Yeah, just both of us would be blurry in the background. That's great. Let's just go back to audio, I guess. Your stories creeped me out the second time around. So it was just the theme. I couldn't believe
Yeah.
the theme of the,
The
mimics and the
doppelgangers.
doppelgangers.
That's crazy. That is so crazy. And Michelle, you read one of Michelle's stories,
Yeah.
but she texted me the other day that
She's from Indiana.
no, she's in Arizona.
Oh, Arizona.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking of Brittany. Sorry.
She messaged me the other day that a while ago, and I must have forgot about it. She had like a similar story where she thought she heard her sister calling for her, and she wasn't there.
Nope.
So we almost have to do.
I hate that actually.
We
Like,
almost,
I hate
know,
that.
we almost have to do another episode about mimics and doppelgangers
Yeah,
because it's
there's
becoming
so
such
much.
a thing. So maybe we'll do another episode about that.
Cool.
But yeah, this is it It was going to turn into just one topic, but then I went to look for stories about this, and I realized they might not be exactly what this is. So then I decided to just do a topic of my own too. So this is basically just a mini mysteries episode where we each pick a topic and we discuss it.
Yeah. Who's going first?
You.
Dang. That's fine. So
I loved your idea because I've seen this popping up a lot lately, and Astonishing Legends did a 2-part episode about this, and I just think it's really fascinating.
It is. So I'm going to be talking about the third man syndrome, also known as the third man factor or the third man effect.
I don't like syndrome because that makes it sound like
an
sickness.
Illness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't either, but that's like the most commonly used
I like third man
term.
factor.
I do too. Essentially, the most basic description of this is when someone's going through something really stressful or traumatic, or like some kind of survival situation sometimes. They sense a presence of another person or being with them that is maybe helping them in some way or even just accompanying them throughout the experience
Motivating
so they're
them
not
or,
alone.
like,
Yeah, so that's basically what that is. And when I was going through all the different stories, because I'm going to get to people's stories at the end, there were a lot that were more like, to me, sounded like divine intervention. Like somebody's driving and they hear this voice out of nowhere that yells, stop. And so they hit the brakes and they avoid an accident.
And that's what my Reddit stories were, where I realized it was more like guardian angels.
That's what that feels like to me. Or like a relative of yours stepped in to help you out.
So I think our stories we would save till we do a guardian angels or premonitions episode. Because to me, the third man syndrome or the third man factor is more of a survival thing where it's not like you're immediately going to be in a car accident.
Right.
It's more of you're doomed to try to survive, and that's when this happens. So I feel like there's a difference there.
And for me I picked stories of people who it was more like whatever it was helped them get through something rather than prevented something, because to me those are two different things.
Well, like, I'm just going to read this one story from Reddit, and it's like, would you say this is a third man syndrome?
Okay.
It came from Reddit. The poster writes, "Wow, something like this happened to my dad. He fell off a sea cliff in Alaska onto boulders and shattered his leg and broke his back in a handful of places. He lay there alone for hours calling for help with no luck. Then he said a little girl came down the cliff and kept him company. He said she told him stories and sang to him, pet his head, and even put her coat over him to help keep him warm. But when someone eventually came around the bay and spotted him there was no little girl. It was near a very small, remote Alaskan town, and no one in that small community had any idea of any little girl who even remotely matched that description."
100%.
Do you think that's
what I think is third man factor?
Okay.
Not the little girl came and told him, watch out, before he fell over the cliff.
And some of the stories that I have in here were car accidents where they hear a voice say stop.
Yeah, I had several of those too. And I was like,
So you think there's a difference between...
I think there's a difference.
Okay. Continue. Sorry to hijack your...
Yeah, no, it's fine. That was a great example, actually. And I was worried you were going to read one that I had because I went to Reddit too.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Well, I got some from an article.
Look at you dipping in on Reddit now.
I know. I do like Reddit. It's a bit of a rabbit hole.
Oh, God.
So I'm going to walk through a couple of the more well-known stories too that come up when you Google this. But I'm going to read some stuff this is part of it from Wikipedia. So one of the most cited historical descriptions of the third man syndrome was from Sir Ernest Shackleton's 1919 book called South, in which he described his experience in the final leg of his 1914 to 1917 Antarctic expedition. Ernest and his expedition crew found themselves stranded when their ship became lodged in pack ice for more than 2 years.
That's crazy.
If somebody had said 2 weeks, I would have been like, dude, how did they get through 2 years?
Yep.
Shackleton wrote, quote, "During that long and racking march of 36 hours this was like, there was a whole thing where they were surviving in various places and traveling to various places, but there's this one part of their trip where he's talking about, during that long and racking march of 36 hours over the unnamed mountains and glaciers of South Georgia, it seemed to me often that we were 4, not 3. Something that was echoed by others in his party. Quote, "There was indeed one thing about our crossing of South Georgia, a thing which I have never been able to explain. Whenever I reviewed the incidents of that march, I had the subconscious feeling that there were 4 of us instead of 3, wrote Worsley, per the Royal Scottish Geographical Society. So it was a huge crew, I think of huge, 25 people. But smaller crews would break out to try to find help or get to a certain location or whatever. So this was 3 people, but they often felt like there were 4. And then when this book came out, throughout history, other usually explorers felt more comfortable talking about the experiences that they had that were similar. And T.S. Eliot, a poet, he wrote a poem called The Wasteland.
He also wrote my all-time favorite poem,
which is?
The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock.
Oh, they're long, dude. This one is.
Okay, so
I looked this one up, and I'm like, this is like a short story. It's not a poem.
It makes me sound like such an English major poser because that's like such a stock English major answer. But his poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, is like one of the best poems. Like, I love T.S. Eliot, but yeah, his poems aren't like Robert Frost. It's like, these are long, long poems, but yeah.
True literature.
Yeah.
So lines 359 through 365 of his modernist poem, The Wasteland, were inspired by Shackleton's experience, and he states this in the notes of the work. So Shackleton's experience, to what I could find out, was really the first time this comes up anywhere. And then T.S.'s poem is kind of how it got its name, because he's the first person, well, although Shackleton did refer to it as third, whatever. So I'm going to read the lines from the poem. Who is the third who walks always beside you? When I count, there are only you and I together. But when I look ahead, up the white road, there is always another one walking beside you. Gliding wrapped in a brown mantle, hooded, I do not know whether a man or a woman, but who is that on the other side of you? And what's interesting about this is that Shackleton talks about there being a fourth, because there were 3 of them, and they all felt like there was a fourth. But T.S. Eliot refers to it as a third. Even though it's based on Shackleton's story. So the frame becomes coined as a third man, which is interesting because it's not very accurate for the original story that inspired it, but that's okay. The next story I'm going to talk about is British explorer Frank Smith. Is that how you would pronounce it?
I would say Smythe.
Smythe? Okay. Frank Smythe. He almost became the first person to summit Mount Everest in 1933. Smythe and his climbing party attempted to summit Everest in poor conditions. Are there ever good conditions?
I was going to say, I wouldn't want to summit Everest
on the perfect day. Yeah.
You know?
I saw on something on YouTube or online somewhere that 18 people died trying to summit Mount Everest last year alone. Last year, 18 people. The conditions were so bad that his party actually abandoned the climb and turned back, but Frank continued on, determined to summit the mountain. Unfortunately, he also had to turn back when he was just 1,000 feet or 304 meters away. At this point, even though he was completely alone, he claims that he felt like he was not alone. Quote, all the time that I was climbing alone, I had a strong feeling that I was accompanied by a second person. The feeling was so strong that it completely eliminated all loneliness I might otherwise have felt. Smythe was so convinced at one point that someone was accompanying him in his climb that he actually turned around to offer them food.
Yeah. I mean,
like he was going to share what's called a Kendall mint cake. I don't know what that is.
I don't know, but
it
sounds
delicious. Turned around and realized he was alone. And so there's a book, too, that I guess is really well known called The Third Man Factor by John Geiger.
Yep. When I was looking up Third Man stuff, that kept popping up. And
yeah. It's just a collection of stories about the experiences from all over. And these are a couple. So I found a website on The Guardian. I found an article on The Guardian website that are 2 stories taken from that book. This one is crazy. I think I've heard of this before,
I think
too.
I've heard of this one,
the
too.
The 9/11 story.
Yep.
So I don't know how. I'm not going to get his last name right. Ron DiFrancesco?
Yeah, I think that's right. DiFrancesco.
Was on the 84th floor of the South Tower at the World Trade Center on September 11th, 2001. When the second plane crashed into the building, he made several attempts to escape but failed to find a safe exit. I'm quoting right from the article, by the way. At the brink of giving up, DiFrancesco heard an unfamiliar voice. Quote, someone told me to get up. Someone, he said, called me. The voice, which was male but did not belong to one of the people in the stairwell, was insistent. Get up. It addressed DiFrancesco by his first name and gave him encouragement. It was, hey, you can do this, but it was more than a voice. There was also a vivid sense of a physical presence. He had the sensation that somebody lifted me up. He felt that he was being guided. Quote, I was led to the stairs. I don't think something grabbed my hand, but I was definitely led. With the help from With help from what DeFrancisco describes as an angel, he made it out of the South Tower alive. He was only one of 4 people to escape from above the 81st floor.
You know, and while I love
wild.
stories like this, like if I lost somebody in that, it would be like, why didn't this happen to my person?
Yeah.
Why didn't somebody lead my person?
I would love to know, did one of these 4 people go on to do something like really incredible? Like, did they survive for a really specific reason? I don't know.
And
I mean, it's great. Anybody who got out of that alive.
It sounds like one of the
miracle,
defining things of a third man factor situation would be feeling a physical presence when there's nobody there.
Yeah.
It's not just a voice. It's also like feeling like
presence.
somebody is
I would
with
agree.
you.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting.
Okay, here's another one. I didn't even really read this one very closely, if I'm being honest with you. While ice climbing in the Canadian Rockies near Lake Louise, Alberta, James Savigny and Richard Whitmire were overcome by an avalanche. That is so scary.
I know.
Ugh, it carried them nearly 2,000 feet. While Savigny regained consciousness, he was severely injured and he discovered that Whitmire was dead. His back was broken in 2 places. He had a fractured arm, cracked ribs, severed nerves, torn ligaments in his knees, broken teeth, and internal bleeding.
That's kind of how I feel lately.
No avalanche
I
required.
didn't need an avalanche.
He lay down to die. He then felt a sudden, strange sensation of an invisible being very close at hand. It was something I couldn't see, but it was a physical presence. The presence communicated mentally, and its message was clear. You can't give up. You have to try.
It's interesting to me that there's just like always this motivation, you know? Like
They're
I
giving
said,
up.
there's a difference between hearing the stop when you're driving.
Yeah, it
and
prevented the
there's
accident.
And this, it's more of a motivating, you're going to be okay, you're going to get through this.
Yeah.
Huh.
The presence urged Savigny to get up. It dispensed practical advice. It told him, for example, to follow the blood dripping from the tip of his nose as if it were an arrow pointing the way. As he walked, he kept breaking through the crust of the deep snow and was... How could he walk?
I don't know.
And that's
like,
almost a miracle in itself.
Like the thing that freaks me out about an avalanche is not knowing... Like you're in the snow, you don't know which way is up.
Yeah.
That freaks me out. You know,
I came across a video on, I think, social media of somebody who's skiing or snowboarding, and they just happened to notice out of the corner of their eye a snowboard was sticking out of the snow, and there was a guy who was buried, and he was like, basically he could not move, and that person literally saved their life that day. It was insane. He just kept digging and digging and digging, and it was insane how hard it was to get him out of that snow. If that guy hadn't come across him, he would have died there. Yeah. As he walked, he kept breaking through the crust of the deep snow and was almost unable to pull his feet back up because of his injuries. Part of the time he crawled. The presence, which stood behind his right shoulder, implored him to continue even when the struggle to survive seemed untenable. When Savigny finally made it back to base camp, there were people there to aid him. When the presence left, he was overcome with loneliness. He understood it was more than luck that led to his miraculous survival. So now I just have a whole bunch of stories. This is from the first half are from a BuzzFeed article that I found, and I actually weeded a lot of them out because they were I heard a voice that told me not to do this, and I was saved.
What do you think about this one?
Okay.
From Reddit. I was in a really terrible car accident a few years ago, and I was stuck in the car. They had to cut me out. During it, I came to, and there was a woman who had climbed into the
story.
Seriously?
Go ahead, though.
Who had climbed into the rear seat behind me and was holding my shoulders, telling me that I was going to be okay and that help was coming. I thought she stayed with me until I blacked out and woke up to a fireman cutting the door off and pulling me out. The firemen, paramedics, and my mother, who had gotten there quickly, all said there was no woman at all, that traffic had gone around and no one had stopped because the fire department was only a few blocks down the road. I can still hear her voice. I know she was touching me, but no one saw her. Still freaks me out.
Actually, mine is different because there was a helicopter involved.
Really?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of these stories. And
that to me is exactly right. That's
you think
the
so?
Third
You think
man.
that's a third man's? That's not a...
They didn't save her necessarily.
No, but they comforted her
them. Yes.
while she was... Okay, that's
and maybe in a
interesting.
way kept them
conscious
and like, okay, I need to get through this kind of.
Huh.
Okay.
I'll
So
stop
I
interrupting
didn't...
you now.
No, you can. That's fine. I was... Okay, this one, there were names. Some of them just said anonymous. Some of them just had their first name. So I'm not even going to do names. But I'm going to have the links to all of the articles that I referenced in the show notes. So do you post them in the... I post them all on YouTube. Do you put them when you
No.
post? Oh, we probably should.
Yeah.
Okay. I was a sophomore in college in Indiana and decided to make the 2.5-hour drive home for the weekend. 45 minutes into my drive, which was on side roads in tiny one-street farm towns, my favorite kind of drive, where there's only one house every few miles, my car stopped. And not all of these are life and death. To make it worse, my phone had just died and I forgot my charger in my dorm room. As I sat in my car panicking, I saw an older gentleman walking down the driveway outside a red farmhouse. I can't say if I noticed the house prior to seeing him, but he asked me if I was okay. He then proceeded to tell me that he would help me and that everything would be okay, and for some reason I believed him. While he was talking to me, I felt calm and completely at ease. I wasn't scared at all. As he promised, he got my car started and off I went. The wild thing was that when I went back to school 2 days later, I couldn't find the house. This was the only way I ever went to and from school, and I was never able to find the house again. I get chills every time I tell someone what happened because I truly believe he was a guardian angel. So it's not like they were in the midst of some life or death survival situation, but
somebody still
also who
helped
knows?
them.
Maybe
Yeah.
some creep would have come along and maybe
you don't know
did
what
save this person.
you don't know what would have happened.
Right.
Which, if you think about it like that, do you think, is it a guardian angel? Is it like a weird time
I don't
travel
know.
thing? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, next one. When I was 28, I had to go in for an emergency C-section. His heart rate kept dropping whenever I'd have a contraction, and I was terrified. There was this kind nurse who came in with the OBGYN who was going to do the procedure. She was about my age, black, and had her hair up in a beautiful bun. She actually reminded me of someone I knew in high school who'd helped me escape a horrifically abusive relationship, but she was much younger than that girl. I remember lying in the hospital bed crying my eyes out. I'm talking ugly crying, snotty nose, the whole 9 yards. She stayed at my bedside the whole time and came with me into the operating theater. She held my hand, wiped my nose, told me very kindly, "Don't you dare apologize for this. You're scared, but it's going to be okay, honey." When they did the spinal block, she held me and let me cry under her shoulder and warned me of what they were doing. After the tube was in for the spinal block and they laid me down, she said, "All right, I'll be right back. I have to get into the sterile gown." I'd calmed down enough that I could breathe normally at least, and from there, everything is sort of a blur. I remember having my kid, kissing his forehead, and then being knocked out to finish up. When I came into the recovery room, I asked my mom, who'd been there for everything, but me being rolled down the hall to the procedure, where the wonderful nurse was. She said she'd never seen a nurse that matched the description I gave. Same for the doctors and nurses who were in the operating theater for the C-section. I have no clue who she was, but I like to think that the universe sent someone who reminded me of a person who saved me from abuse in order to help me through the scariest experience of my life. You could argue they're all guardian angels.
Well, like here's one that I really
that's a thing.
Here's one that I really like, and I think it's interesting, but I don't know if it's third man, if guardian angel. But this is from Reddit too. A friend and I were walking home from the clubs in Florence, Italy. We walked past an American girl walking the opposite way, her GPS loudly blaring where to go, obviously drunk. We walked past her, paused, and then turned around to look at her again. We turned around again, and suddenly there was an American man looking very fresh and clean for 4 a.m. in front of us. He said, "Is that your friend over there?" We said, "No." He said, "Should you go be her friend?" So we went to walk her home, and we waited at her door for her friends to buzz her inside. As we left, we saw that right next to our apartment door was a man hiding behind a parked car, pleasuring himself the entire time we stood there. My friend and I held hands and booked it all the way home after the girl got inside safely. When we got home, we started talking about what had just happened. I said, "What about that blonde guy who was there to help us? He was wearing the exact outfit my dad used to wear on Sundays." And my friend was like, "Blonde? No, he was Latino like me, and he was dressed just like my dad."
Oh, interesting.
It's still the
That just
weirdest
gave me
thing.
the
It's still the
chills.
weirdest thing that's ever happened to me. So is that that's more guardian angel, because this whatever this is getting these guys to protect that girl.
Yeah. But looks like somebody reminds them of somebody they knew and loved.
And it's just like, are you going to get into theories and stuff?
Yeah, spoiler alert, guardian angel is one of the theories.
It's like, are these guardian angels
Yeah.
that are there after the fact? You know what I mean? Like, they didn't stop the disaster from happening, but they're there comforting the person.
help
like,
you
I
get
don't know.
through it
I think
safely.
it's so fascinating. I really do. I had a situation when I was a kid, and I don't remember if I talked about this on here. We were at We were with my family. We were at a motel and I remember, I know where the motel was. It was in Kansas City, Missouri. And I was in the swimming pool and I couldn't swim. And my mom and a lady that was just staying at the hotel, that my mom was talking to her. So I'm in the pool and I'm kind of like going out towards the deep end, and the floor of the pool is starting
Slanting.
to tilt.
Okay.
And I'm starting to like not be able to
Touch the bottom.
And stay up on the shallow end.
Okay.
So I'm freaking out and I'm yelling to my mom. I'm like, I think I'm going to drown. And they were just kind of brushing it off. And then it felt like somebody felt like somebody behind me put their hands on my back and pushed me back up onto the shallow where I could feel it. And that's almost kind of like a guardian angel story. You know,
divine intervention.
Yeah, divine intervention. But then again,
That's
it's like
amazing.
it's like, why these people? Why, you know, like the young girl that died, why didn't somebody save her? You know, it's just like, I don't understand how it happens for some people and it doesn't for some people.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
One of life's mysteries that we'll never know the answer to, I'm sure. Maybe you were meant to have this podcast and help people get through dark times.
Yeah, maybe
someday.
You know,
people tell us we help them get through very dark times. Maybe that was.
It's weird when you think about it. You know, there's probably times that something could have happened to me, and because I took a different path, it didn't.
Oh yeah,
you know,
for sure.
You know, and then that gets to the whole idea of quantum immortality, where like I've died several times. It's just in this universe.
Now?
Yeah, in this universe, I'm still here.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
That's a mind bender.
There's going to be another episode about reality coming up this season too, so we'll be talking more about that kind of stuff.
All right. My oldest was a child who would wander off regularly. They did it on field trips, grocery store trips, any chance they got to be on their own, they took it. Typically, they would always find me. This was a couple decades back, and the world wasn't as scary as it is now. That being said, at school, people always had to know where they were, as they would just up and leave school sometimes as well. When they left school, they would usually sit outside on a bench or under a tree just by themselves and come back when they were ready. Yes, they had pretty significant ADHD. One day, they left school and no one knew where they had gone. One of the other children heard them say that they wanted to walk home by themselves today. Now, we lived a good distance from the school, so a six-year-old walking home alone was not an option. The daycare shuttle had even come and gone without them, and the caregivers were panicking because they didn't know where my kid was. I showed up at daycare after a long day to not only not find my child, but to learn that no one had thought to call me and let me know anything had happened to begin with. I was enraged that they had literally lost my kid and had no idea what to do. They didn't call the police or anything, so I left to go back down where my kid would have walked, terrified that I was never going to see them again. I was nearly nonverbal with terror at this point, speaking aloud only what I could. I stopped outside a strip mall on the other side of town from the school. I was holding my youngest and about to burst into tears, having no idea what to do, when a young man who looked like he was about 20 or so walked towards me holding my child's hand. They were laughing and he was kind of skipping to keep up with him. And he pointed at me, and my kid started running towards me. Through a lens of tears, I scooped up both kids and just sat holding my world in my arms for a second, breathing in both their sense, trying to collect myself and thank this man. When I looked up, he was just gone. Poof. I couldn't see him walking anywhere or anything. I asked my child, "Where did you find him, or did he find you?" They told me I was tired and sat down at the park, and he came up to me and told me I needed to get going so my mom could pick me up. They said it in the most little kid nonchalant tone, like this kind of thing happened every day. I'm a lifelong atheist, and I firmly believe it was either a guardian angel or some other force that was watching out for me and my kids. I will never forget what he looked like, but I'll be damned if I could describe it.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. This one felt like more of a divine intervention one, but it's from someone in Milwaukee, so I had to read it.
From Wisconsin.
Yeah. And this is an interesting story too, though. When I was in college in Chicago, I went on a very fun yet badly supervised trip to the Middle East. Not a place you want to go on a badly supervised trip.
No.
With a few friends who were mainly interested in making their first iteration of Facebook profiles look cool. We posed by the pyramids of Giza, and folks commenced wandering around. I was by myself for a few minutes in the shadow of the pyramids, fiddling with my digital camera and lost in thought. Suddenly, I heard a man's voice call out my first. So, this is exactly the story I said I wasn't going to read, but I'd had to. I heard a man's voice call out my first and middle name in that special way your parents do when you're a kid and in trouble.
Yep.
The way that still makes you unconsciously snap to attention no matter how old you are. The voice said my name sternly and then said, "Run now." I started running before I even looked around, chaos slipping in the sand as I went. As I gained momentum, I looked behind me and saw two men, black hoodies obscuring their faces, chasing me at full speed and almost an arm's length away. Directly behind them, a large van with no rear windows waited. Its side door slid open, only darkness visible inside. As I got back to the bright sun in the crowd, the men veered away and I knew I was safe again. I didn't find anyone from my group for several minutes, but I knew for sure that no one there knew my middle name and couldn't have yelled it out to me. I was too embarrassed to admit the stupid thing I'd done, so we carried on for 9 more days, then went back to Chicago and never talked about it. I was a lot more religious then than I am now, but it still gives me comfort to know that someone or something intervened for me when I needed it. I think I can point to other similar moments where I felt a life-altering spark of guidance, but that moment was definitely the scariest. Dude, she almost got kidnapped by bad people in the Middle East. Like, what could have happened to her?
That is crazy.
I assume it's a she.
Yeah.
But wow.
I think so.
It's like a nightmare. Oh, so this is, I think, the one that I thought you were reading. I got into a car accident last year. I lost control on black ice and flipped my car 4 times into a field. I awoke to a female EMT telling me to reach in the back seat and get one of my knives, then cut the seatbelt and crawl out to her. I had to be airlifted to a city 45 minutes away, and she kept telling me to stay awake, stay awake. Finally, she screamed at me to stay awake. I woke up in the ICU where I had nearly died. I quickly learned there was no female EMT or first responder of any kind on the scene, and definitely was not one on the flight. No one could explain how I'd managed to get out of the car with how injured I was. I don't know what or who she was, but I love her.
That's crazy.
Yeah. The next story. It was the summer just before my 12th birthday and my last summer at the summer camp I'd attend for several years. I think that's supposed to say attended. The camp was located in the coastal mountains in Southern California with regular beach days in the schedule. As a strong swimmer, I enjoyed the beach. And is this another No, it's not. I enjoyed the beach and body surfing the waves. This particular day, I was out in the surf when I saw a large wave coming. Being too far out to reach the shore, the only option was to swim furiously towards the wave. I crested the wave just before it broke, only to see another larger wave coming. Swimming as hard as I could, I again barely made it over the top before the wave broke, only to see another large wave further out. I swam as hard as I could, swimming up the swell, but didn't make it before it broke. The wave threw me over on my back into the water and into its washing machine waves, tumbling me every which way, not knowing which way was up. My feet hit the sandy bottom, and I pushed towards the surface with all of my might. I finally reached the surface and exhaled, only to be hit by another large wave, which tumbled me around and around. Struggling, trying to find the surface, and out of air, I stopped trying. I felt an odd sense of peace, thinking that this was it, and it was what drowning felt like, peaceful. It was at that moment that I felt someone grab me, bringing me to the surface. I gasped for air. The large set of waves had passed, and the surface was as it was before the large waves. Treading water, I circled around looking for who saved me, but no one was even close to me. This was in the 1970s, and I've told the story numerous times, emphasizing the peace and calm I felt. I've never once mentioned that no one was there until now. Instead, I made it up that it had been a lifeguard.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Here's one that the comments actually made me laugh. Kind of a sad story. So she said, when we were kids, my sister overdosed on pills. Her mom found her passed out next to a pile of vomit. When I asked her what happened, she said that a woman in a Pizza Hut uniform showed up and convinced her to throw up in a bowl she was holding. I always assumed it was an hallucination from the pills, but she swears that this person was really there.
Wow.
And one of the comments was somebody said, this is why nobody out pizzas the Hut. Somebody else commented and said, man, these viral ad campaigns keep getting weirder and weirder. And then somebody else wrote, when you're a guardian angel, do you have to get a part-time job? Because that sucks. So I thought that those kind of made me laugh.
I like it.
You can continue if you got any more.
Yeah. Oh, I've got more.
I have some weird ones that all have a common theme, but I'm going to save that for a guardian angel's story.
Okay.
Because there's a bunch of them.
This one feels like a mix of both types, divine intervention, but also third man. Okay, I was 34 years old and new to California. I rented a room in what looked like a nice neighborhood, and it was, except that it was in a bubble and surrounded by rival gang territory. I did my laundry at a laundromat about 3 blocks from my residence. It always seemed like such a nice, quiet part of the neighborhood, and I had gone several times without any problems. This particular Sunday, the laundromat was open but empty. I had finished 2 washing loads and started to load a dryer. As I turned to get the second load from its washer, I noticed a car parked in the parking lot some distance from my car. 2 large guys got out. One walked up to the only door of the laundromat, blocking my only exit. The other guy stayed by the car, standing by the driver's side door. Then a large woman got out of the back seat. She entered the laundromat and hoisted herself up on one of the washers by the wall of windows that faced the parking lot, folded her arms, and stared at me. All the hairs on my neck stood up and I started hyperventilating. I knew I was in trouble. I started grabbing my soaking wet clothes out of the washer and stuffed them into a pillowcase. Then I went to the dryer, opened it, took the still wet clothes out, and stuffed them into another pillowcase. Just at that moment, a man who looked to be in his 30s suddenly appeared behind the man blocking the door. He was carrying a toddler. He pushed past him and just started putting dollar bills in the coin machine by the door and looked at me with a strange look in his eye. I just knew I was meant to follow him. Sure enough, he got his change and stood by the man until he stepped aside. The stranger, his child, and I walked out the door together, me first and then the man and his child. I got to my car, threw the wet pillowcases with clothes in, ran to the driver's side, locked the doors, and drove off. I looked for the man and his little girl as I left, but there was no one there. I saw no other cars and absolutely no people anywhere, just the man who had been blocking the door, and the woman who was now standing outside, and the guy who stayed at their car. I quickly drove to my residence, following a route that I knew had open stores to make sure no one was following me. I arrived safely, told the owner of my residence what happened, and moved to a different area of town that week. Crazy. Like, was he about to get killed? Like, I don't know. What was going on there?
I don't know.
I'm not really sure.
I'm seeing if I have any other stories kind of like this, but it's a lot of hearing stop or don't go around the corner or drive to get away from the tornado.
Oh, sure. Well, while you're looking, I'll keep reading. About 10 years ago, I lived in Chicago with my family. A huge snowstorm hit us one weekend, which was nothing for us. We went to volleyball practice as usual in my mom's minivan. Unfortunately, that day our van got stuck. An old man got stuck in the same spot, and we were trying to help each other. Out of nowhere, another man walked up and started putting gloves on, telling the old man he'd help us first, then get to him. A few minutes later, he had both cars free. I turned around to thank him, and he was gone. We were in a random neighborhood, and I never saw him leave a house or go back to one. I'll always remember him.
Oh.
Just kind of a nice story.
It
was probably Jim. He always helps people do stuff like that.
I got one too for I think when you're done with yours.
Okay.
Do you have
Yeah, I've got more.
Okay.
I haven't even gotten to the Reddit ones yet.
Oh God.
There's not a lot though. I'm on page.
Well,
I don't know.
I'm going to read this one
Yeah,
because
go ahead.
I thought this was interesting. So somebody on Reddit says, quote, I have a guardian angel. I've seen him, but it's hard to explain what he looks like because it's not really something we have words for. I won't even say he's male, but it sounds strange to say. I don't think they are beings that have one sex or another, although they might appear that way to make a person feel more comfortable. I have conversations with him, and on occasion he has touched me. I wept at his touch because it feels like pure love flowing into my body. He doesn't touch me often because he says it's hard for them to do it. I asked him why, and he said it's hard to explain. One of the greatest things he does is help me find things. He directed me to a lost credit card that was in the grass in a park across the street from my house. I had tore up my entire apartment and was devastated thinking I'd lost it somewhere. Turns out it had fallen out of my purse when I was crossing the park a few days ago. I would never have looked there because I never would have thought it was there. I had a lot of interesting conversations with him. I asked him if everyone has a guardian angel, and he said no, they do not. However, many people do. And then somebody responds to that, and this is 100% what I would say. He says, how can not everyone have a guardian angel? Are some people more deserving of it than others?
Mm-hmm.
What's the deal with that?
Mm-hmm.
Does this mean that some people don't actually have souls? I'm not being sarcastic here. I genuinely think about that quite a bit. And then the original poster responds, and I I like this. He responds, says, according to him, it has nothing to do with worth or being deserving because they aren't even really here to guard us. He claims they basically do this to enjoy the ride of life alongside us, sort of like watching a movie. The whole guardian thing was something we came up with to make ourselves feel better, he says. While they do have some power to interfere in things, they rarely do. He says that the highest part of them and the highest part of us is the same thing. I always took that to mean they are literally attached to our mind or energy in some way. So in a sense, I do believe the angel is in our imagination, but I also think it's a separate being. He also said that there are actually many different types of beings that humans think of as angels or spirit guides. So what's true for him in his relationship with me might not be true for someone else. There may be some important human that has an angel sent to specifically guard them. I don't know. But for the most part, they're just here for the enjoyment of us, not the protection of us. And I get that.
That's interesting.
It's like I would be the kind of person that would stop on a country road and help a turtle cross the road. And other people would just not care and go past it. And I could see this being like that, where if you're remaining around as a ghost, some people might want to help other people and some people might not. Some people might just be hanging out, where I would want to help somebody. So I really like the idea that it's not so much a guardian angel, it's just a ghost that is a good dude, I guess. I don't know. I just like that.
It reminded me of when you said it helped him find things, because I was raised Catholic. Went to Catholic school, the whole thing,
The whole shebang.
and when I would lose something, my mom would always tell me to pray to Saint Anthony.
Yes.
Because Saint Anthony would help you find things.
Yep.
That's cool. I like that explanation.
Yeah,
though.
I do too. That it's not a guardian angel, it's just a spirit that's
Along for the ride.
along for the ride and feels like helping you.
They happen to think your ride is worthwhile, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So this one was the first story. This person told two stories, but the first one was more of the whole divine intervention. So the second was when I was in elementary school in Brownies. Oh, she. That's a she. Brownies is a girl thing. Now I want a brownie. In Brownies, to be exact. We took a troop trip to the mountains. We were at a marina in Lake Arrowhead feeding some ducks. I was so caught up with throwing food to this one particular duck that I didn't realize how close to the edge of the dock I was and fell into the water. It was winter time and I was wearing several layers of clothes. I was so heavy and weighed down that I could barely get to the surface. I remember trying really, really hard to grab the edge of the dock, but I couldn't hold myself up and the troop leaders weren't strong enough to pull me out. Everything started to feel like slow motion, and the further down I kept sinking, the more I felt I wasn't getting out of that water alive. Suddenly, some man dressed in a full-on suit, dress shoes, and sunglasses jumped into the lake and effortlessly pulled me out of the water. He never said a word to me, and when my troop leaders turned to thank him, he had quite literally vanished as quickly as he had appeared. We were absolutely shook. Again, feels like a guardian angel.
What's in there is what's in all those Reddit stories I talked about that have something in common, and that is this person wearing a suit. It shows up a lot.
Oh, okay.
And then somebody responded, why is a person always wearing a suit in all these stories? And then somebody else responded, because that's what the person is buried in.
Ooh.
And then the person responded to that and said, well, I won't be sleeping tonight.
Yeah.
But so many of the stories that I read, the person was wearing a suit, which is interesting because you are kind of how you were buried.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the only one I came across of a person in a suit. That's interesting. And this is the last story from that article, and then I have a few Reddit stories.
Okay, I'm done with stories.
Okay. And finally, this person's experiences are as the third man. My whole life since I was very young, I'd have dreams of people I didn't know. I would arrive when they were in danger or emotional crisis and be with them, warn them about something that was about to happen, or push them away from danger. Then I'd wake up. I've met a few of the people I've helped in dreams in real life years later. I would describe these events in detail and they would confirm and say they felt like there was someone there with them. Reading this article is the first time I've heard of third man syndrome and was astounded to hear it described. So that's interesting. All right, these are Reddit stories, and these are all a little shorter. Hey, so I thought I'd share my experience. I saw the phenomenon of third man factor on Instagram Reel today and realized these stories echo an experience of mine. I've been trawling through Reddit of experiences, and lots speak of a figure, female, male, that pop out of nowhere with perfect timing to help only to disappear suddenly again. I was 18 at the time, working on set design when I was in film school, Melbourne. I was the last to leave that day for filming a hospital scene. The short film was taking place in an abandoned psychiatric wing of an old hospital from the 50s, 60s, 70s.
It sounds like session
Yeah, session 9.
Session 9.
Yeah, a bit creepy. I was last to leave that day. I had to take an old clunky hospital bed up an elevator to the 3rd level, put it back in a room upstairs. So I get in the elevator with the big heavy bed, wheel it down the hall of the abandoned hospital, old medical papers littered around, lights off at the end of the hall. No one was there. Get this. Was where it said the elevator at the end of the hall was broken down and someone died falling down it. Yeah, you can imagine that I was keeping my calm but wanted to get this bed wheeled into its room ASAP and get out of there. I wheeled the bed to the door frame and bang, the bed doesn't fit through the door frame. It was too big. Oh, fudge, I think.
I was wondering what you were going to say. I saw that word there. I was wondering how you were going to cover that up.
I was just going to drop it. It doesn't fit. And suddenly a nurse dressed in 1950s gear, there was no one else in this wing.
That's crazy.
Appeared and was apt to help me maneuver the bed through the doorframe. And then when I turned around to say thank you, she wasn't there. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps all over again. She was wearing a white nurse outfit and a hat. I later asked if anyone was up there of that description, and they said no, only a male security guard downstairs. Leaving through the newer wings of the hospital, I noticed no other nurses were wearing a hat like that. A hat like she was. I thought I had actually witnessed a ghost. I'm skeptical AF about ghosts, though. Maybe what I experienced was the third man factor. She was dressed like she worked there, though. Ah, so weird.
That is weird.
So not a crisis or survival situation, but just somebody
I'd
lending a helping
into one
hand.
of those creepy Silent Hill
Ooh, all
nurse,
doing the
nurse
herky-jerky
mannequins
walk
doing the herky jerky
with, like,
walk.
no face.
Yeah.
Wow. They all had big boobs, though.
I don't remember that. No, I
remember. I thought it was so
those
ridiculous.
were, like, everybody talked about Pyramid Head, but the nurse things were the creepiest to me with the jerky walk.
Pyramid Head was the creepiest thing to me. Ooh, there's something so like that is like
primal
nightmare fuel right there. He did the herky jerky walk too.
Yeah, but not like the nurses.
He was buff though. That dude was like lifting weights in his free time.
The nurses thing was disconcerting because they're kind of hot, but at the same time
they could kill you.
They're creepy.
They did a good job of those in the movie.
Yes, they did. They really did.
Actually, Pyramid Head was really good in the movie too. I don't know who that guy was, but he was ripped. New story. My aunt experienced this when she fell out of her boyfriend's truck while he was driving. When does that even happen?
I fell out of my dad's car when we were kids.
Really?
Yeah, we were going around a corner by, I know exactly, I could show you exactly where it happened. We were
I've never fallen out of a car.
Yeah, we were going around a corner right by Lutheran High School in Manitowoc.
For
we were going around,
or what?
Yeah, we didn't do seatbelts back then, but we were going around a corner and I'm talking to my dad and all of a sudden I'm laying in the road.
Oh my God.
And I'm watching my dad keep driving, and then all of a sudden I see the brake lights come on, and I see him back up. So I mean, it was around a corner, so it wasn't fast.
You rolled a little.
Yeah. So, but that did happen to me. So it does happen.
Wow. She got pulled.
It explains probably a lot of stuff about me. Actually. At least my dad stopped and
didn't keep driving. Make you walk the rest of the way,
or just take off.
She got pulled underneath the vehicle when he hit a bump while she had hit the door open. What? Well, she had the door open.
The thing about Reddit stories is you have to kind of go in there and edit them before you read them.
I should have. She got pulled underneath the vehicle when he hit a bump while she had her door open, planning to planning to jump out
in the first place.
She said an elderly man drove up in his truck saying he and his wife lived up the hill and heard the commotion while sitting on their porch. She said that he said that he'd keep his truck's headlights shined on her until help arrived. Then another car drove up and called an ambulance, and she said that's when the old man's truck disappeared. Once she was out of the hospital, she went back to where she had her accident to thank the man, but she couldn't find a house nearby. That's the second time someone said that they couldn't find the house, and I always find that a little creepy.
Yeah, that is.
That's
creepy.
Like a whole, like a person, I get it, but an entire house, that's like, makes you question your reality a little bit. So these are all pretty short. When I was younger, I was in a situation where I alone had to take care of my little sister, and I used to talk about a man who comforted me when I felt hopeless or abandoned. I haven't seen him since I was removed from the situation. I didn't know that this was a thing, to be honest. I feel like this is a new one. I feel like we're getting closer to discovering that these spirits, some of these are just like comments, not stories. I just thought they were really interesting. That these spirits are non-human intelligences exist for real and have been guiding humanity since the beginning of time. Some are helpful, some are tricksters, and some are downright evil. There exists a realm of existence beyond our sensory perception. I know it sounds crazy, but someday we will prove its scientific existence and our models of reality will require a massive overhaul. That's very true. After experiencing something similar at a dark time, I sat and thought on it for a very long time. For over a year, I swore it was supernatural, but I've come to the conclusion it was our body's subconscious instinct using all of its power to keep us alive. Mm-hmm. The brain is an extremely powerful computer affected by many different chemicals. I think the collective knowledge of over 200,000 years of humans is stored somewhere in our DNA. That's an interesting idea.
It is.
And it knows the most effective methods of being useful. Before calling me crazy, think of two options. A, it's more believable that a ghost angel saved my life that I knew wasn't there. Or B, instinct does exist in humans, animals that is implanted at birth.
I'm going to read this last one because this could possibly show up as a theory.
Okay.
Somebody on Reddit wrote, in the 1980s, for a few months, I had dreams where I was observing traumatic situations like car accidents or gunshot victims where I could share their pain and help them move through the pain to get to safety.
Oh, interesting.
The worst one involved a woman who was alone in the woods and had broken her legs and was in such pain that I woke up physically drained each morning. My mom confronted me about why I was not sleeping, and the whole story came out. She didn't believe me, but she told me to stop trying to help these people because it wasn't my job, and I didn't even know if any of this was real. Years later, I saw one of these stories about people that shouldn't be alive and recognized the woman who crawled to her car over several days. She said she didn't remember crawling, but must have because she found herself at her car. I assume that this kind of thing is still going on just with people other than myself. And if so, thank you, whoever you are.
That's
so it's
crazy.
Interesting to think that people might be doing this.
Are they like astral projecting?
Yeah, almost like a quantum leap kind of thing where you're sending your spirit to help people.
Yeah.
So that's interesting too.
That's crazy.
Yep.
This is the last story. Very short. People in my family were in a terrible house fire. A small child around 3 years old became trapped in the hallway. He describes a man that was there with him that, quote, let him hide under his long cloak.
It's so crazy.
While he waited for someone to rescue him.
That's creepy, too.
Yeah, also creepy. The story ends well, but not before the little boy's dad broke a 2-story window, dropped him out into the snow, and jumped after him. So, theories.
I have one to add to yours that I don't see there.
Okay.
A lot of the Reddit stories, like when people would say, what were your situations in Third Man? There were a lot of commenters that said that they were in a situation where someone was in a car accident and they got out to like kind of talk to them and comfort them. And once they saw the sirens, the police lights coming, they left to not be in the way.
Yeah.
And they're like, I wonder if
somebody's going in and out of consciousness.
I wonder if I'm somebody's third man, even though I was actually there.
That's a cool idea.
Which is interesting, because I'm sure that happens. That happened a lot. There were a lot of comments, and people said that they went there and they didn't want to be in the way, or they were in a hurry to get somewhere, so they left because they saw that the ambulance was coming.
Yeah.
So that person could go the rest of their life
highly,
thinking it was
highly
a
plausible.
third man experience.
Yeah. So theory 1, loved ones who have passed, who are just, grandpa's looking out for you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I just heard a story on Spooked. I'm binging Spooked right now. If I go a while without listening, then I have a bunch of episodes I can listen to.
That's how I am with Monsters Among Us.
Oh, and there was a story where they figured out that the kid's great grandfather actually, who they couldn't figure out who it was, had saved him from running out and probably getting hit by a car. So that was what came to mind. Guardian angels or divine intervention. We've mentioned that several times. Hallucinations. In a lot of these situations, people are under extreme stress mentally and physically, and I could easily see the brain's synapses like
and that's
misfiring.
why people say, like, near-death experiences are because you're basically hallucinating.
Exactly. Misfiring causing auditory, visual, or sensory hallucinations, or in certain situations where someone is deprived of oxygen, hallucinations are very much a possibility.
Yep.
Maybe it's just a coping mechanism. And I thought of the movie Castaway.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks has the volleyball.
Yep.
And it becomes a character
Wilson?
at some point.
Wilson,
yes. And I feel like that helped get him through that ordeal. And that's 100% just a coping mechanism.
Yeah. And that would apply for the survival ones, but that wouldn't really, for like the guardian angel type ones, that wouldn't really apply.
Where they literally were saved.
Yeah, where it just happened.
Yeah. I mean, you think of kids who go through trauma when they're young.
Yeah.
I think a lot of them develop imaginary friends.
Yeah.
And that's such a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
So, that's all I have.
Cool. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you suggested
Very
that
intriguing.
as a story, I was like, cool, I like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna have to do one about guardian angel. There's so many guardian angel stories. We could probably do a whole episode about guardian angel.
Probably
stories.
just stories about pictures that people take at like car accidents where they see
Well,
what
we
looks like
talked
a
about,
soul
Yep, we talked about that.
or an angel.
We talked about that. The Joplin tornado or the storms where people said that they were saved by angels.
Oh yeah,
We did talk about that.
that was like a whole bunch of people,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
But it's funny you mentioned photographs because that segues right into my story.
Well, how convenient.
How convenient. You don't even know what my
I
story
have no
is.
idea.
So I planned on doing this in an episode literally since we started the podcast. It's just, it never came up.
Like since 2017?
Since 2017, I've wanted to do this story.
Okay.
Because this was like a big story for me back in the day. And what always fascinated me about this story is that it was really big for a while, and then all of a sudden you just stopped hearing about it. It was like I always wanted to know what happened. I'm like, was it
Am I going to recognize this?
I don't know if you will or not. You probably will.
Okay.
Like, I always was like, was it proven to be a hoax? Is that why nothing's going on about it?
Sure.
So when I needed a subject to do, because like I said, I was like the stories, I wasn't sure if they were appropriate for the third man stuff. I'm like, I'm just going to do a different story. And then I did this one because I don't know if I got this book from you. I don't know where I got this book from. But it's kind of based off of this.
Oh yeah, that's mine.
The Sightings book, because
Yeah.
I loved Sightings.
Yeah, me too.
back
That was
in
a
the
great
day.
show.
And one of the big stories that was on Sightings that it kind of got known for is the Ghost Writer case.
Oh, I kind of remember that.
Yes.
Okay.
And I loved that story, and this happened in like the early 90s. And Sightings came out, and if you've never seen Sightings, I'm actually
Can
gonna
you still
put
catch it somewhere?
no, it's
Maybe
like it's
YouTube?
YouTube. I'm gonna post the YouTube. It's on YouTube. This story from Sightings. I'm gonna post this in the Strangers and maybe even on the actual Strange Sessions Facebook page.
Okay.
It's 20 minutes long, but you get to see all this stuff that I'm gonna be talking about. And I always thought this was such a fascinating story. And I have to say that since I started looking into this, my opinion on it has flip-flopped about 5 times between hoax and legitimate. Like, I don't know what to make of this.
Okay.
Like, I went down a rabbit hole pretty deep this week with this case. I listened to some podcasts about it, but it's just like a super fascinating case, and it is the case of Ghost Writer that was seen on Sightings. So you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Now I just screwed something up here. Okay.
Are you ready?
I am not ready. Entertain our listeners. Okay, now I'm ready.
Okay. Whew. Pressure's
so
off.
this came from the Sightings TV show and the book. That was your book because I've been reading that at home. So Sightings was a show that started on the Fox network in 1992 and was hosted by Tim White. Sightings, if you've never seen it,
I have to Google Tim White now because I can't picture
once
this dude.
once you see the clip that I'm going to post, you're going to be like, oh God, that's Tim White right there.
Okay.
Like Sightings, if you've never seen it, was like unsolved mysteries, but it was all paranormal stuff. It was UFOs, it was cryptids,
Aliens,
it was ESP, it was all that stuff. No,
That's not
that's
American Professional
that's a
Wrestling Referee.
That's a different Tim White.
Tim White. I'll just Google
Tim White
Sightings.
Tim White Sightings.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was such a good show, and I don't know why you can't find it anywhere. You know, you would think it would be on a streaming platform.
I feel like Netflix needs to get on that.
Yeah, it was such a good show. Like I
did
loved
the Unsolved Mysteries. Let's do Sightings.
Yeah, like Unsolved Mysteries, like Sightings was Unsolved Mysteries just strictly for paranormal stuff.
For nerdy paranormal people.
So this was like a huge part of Sightings was the Ghost Writer case. And like I said, it always puzzled me that it was huge and then it just stopped. You didn't hear anything about it anymore.
Maybe that's a sign that it was a hoax.
I don't know. So we're going to get into that. So
Okay.
in 1980,
I just got curded.
You just got curded. In 1985, John Matkowski moved into his dream home, a rustic cabin built in 1906 in Mount Washington, a suburb of Los Angeles. Almost immediately after moving in, John started having strange experiences, like hearing sounds at night, seeing shadows moving out of the corner of his eyes, and feeling like he was being watched. Of this, he said, quote, most of this comes directly from the Sightings book. He says, quote, I felt sort of a sunburn on my arms. It was tingly, like a sunburn. That's how I would know that there was some kind of presence here, which is a weird way to describe the feeling that somebody's watching you.
Mm-hmm.
In the clip that I'm going to post from Sightings, you hear him say this. And I listened to he was interviewed recently on another podcast, and he said the same thing. He said it's hard to explain, but it feels like a sunburn.
So he's still doing like interviews?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But not very often.
Okay.
Because nobody
But
really...
recently?
Yeah, it was pretty recent. But the girl that did this podcast, like her friend knows him personally. So he came on to talk about it. So he rented out part of the house to his friend John Huckert. John Huckert was the one that was on the podcast. You don't hear much about Matkowski anymore, but you hear, like, John Huckert still talks about it. So it was the two Johns. So I refer to them as the Johns.
Okay.
He rented out part of the house to his friend John Huckert, and shortly after moving in, Huckert began experiencing things too. He also sensed a presence there watching him. In the book, Huckert states, quote, I was reading something at the desk, and I felt someone come up and place a hand on my shoulder. Of course, I turned around to see who it was, and nobody was there. I got sort of a jolt of adrenaline. It made me nervous. I wasn't exactly sure what it was, but when I tried to mask out all the possibilities for what was causing it, there was nothing causing it. Neither of the Johns felt threatened by the presence. They felt it just wanted its presence known. Then Huckert believes he became the first one to see the presence when out of the corner of his eye one night he saw an older man standing near the couch watching him. That's creepy.
Yeah.
Then in 1991, everything kind of changed. For Christmas that year, Huckert's father gave him a Polaroid instant camera. He played around with the camera, taking pictures of the Christmas tree and presents and all that stuff. Then, one day in March, Huckert got the familiar feeling that the presence was in the room with him. The Polaroid still had some film in it, so Huckert picked up the camera and started taking pictures. In the book, Huckert says, quote, I suddenly felt a sense of anxiety. I'm not sure how to describe it, but I just felt this strange feeling, and I got up and I took a picture of the room. Nothing happened, so I thought that was really stupid that I did that. Then the bathroom door opened by itself. I took a picture of the bathroom door and got this really strange looking thing that was either scary or comical. John came home and he took one. Then I got a couple more and we got 4 photos that day. So the first photo I'm going to show you. Yes.
Okay. So now I really remember.
So the first photo I'm going to show you is the one that he says, he talks about this, I think on Sightings, and I think he talks about it in the podcast I listened to. He said it's like this weird mixture of comical and kind of spooky. It's almost like you're asking the ghost to show itself, and then it shows itself as what you would figure a ghost to be.
Okay.
Like, I'll show you the picture. It's a goofy picture, but this was the first one they got.
I might try to overlay a picture in the video.
Okay, I was wondering if you could do that.
I think so.
So this is the picture when he
out.
asked it. I have two here. This was the picture when he asked it to show itself.
Yeah, that is kind of like, oh, here's a face. I don't know how well they can see that.
They probably can't. Yeah, like it looks like a Casper kind of ghost,
kinda.
like wearing
eyes,
the eyes and a shocked mouth.
Yeah,
it looks like a kid would
like
draw a picture of a ghost.
Yeah, totally.
And then this was one of the other ones they took that day.
Oh, come on.
That looks like a koala bear. That doesn't.
That's crazy.
That looks like a koala bear. So they were like, what is this?
Can you send those to me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So they were like, what is this?
Well, they were Polaroids, right?
Yes.
So how could you manipulate that? I'm sure there are ways.
We're going to get into that.
I'm sure there are ways.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. So that's the one that they said was kind of comical and kind of creepy at the same time, but it's almost like
I find
they said
comical.
This ghost is almost like playful, like
sure.
like show yourself, so it shows itself as
a
a typical dorky looking ghost.
Like it's
thing.
comical for us, but if I caught that in a photo here, I'd be like,
freak
see
out.
ya.
Yeah, you'd be like,
house is
deuces.
going on the market.
Yep. Yeah. Thinking that the film might have been defective, the Johns went out and bought new film cartridges, but the images kept showing up. They took the images to a friend of theirs that worked at a photo lab in LA, but the friend couldn't figure out how the images were showing up. People were skeptical, though, understandably. Like, if somebody showed me that picture,
I'd be like,
I'd be like,
okay.
dude,
Nice ghost.
I'd be like, nice try, I guess. So one day their friend Ross Harpold was at the house, and he was scoffing at the images, which, understandably, they're scoff-worthy. Ross asked Huckert if the ghost was there with them now, and Huckert said that he didn't know. He picked up the camera and he asked out loud, "Are you here?" and snapped a photo. As the picture was developing, the two men were astounded to see the word "yes" seem to appear in the photograph. Matkowski then picked up the camera, asked, "What is your name?" and snapped a picture of himself. As the film developed, the word Wright, Wright, was clearly seen on the image. And I think I have a picture of that one.
This
too.
is what I remember.
Yes, yeah.
Because is it in like a glowing...
Yep, I'll show you in 1 second here.
That's what I distinctly remember from this story.
Okay, I don't have the right one here. But this is what...
Yes.
Yeah, that's what the writing looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So they got the name...
I will find that one as well.
I have it at home on my computer. I'll send you that one. They're surprisingly hard to find. There's a couple online, but they're kind of surprisingly hard to find.
There's like something sticking out of my microphone that's hitting me in the face. It's driving me crazy.
What was it?
I don't know if it's like a fuzz or something. Okay, I think I got it.
Yeah, so they're like, who is Wright? Like, they had no idea why it showed the word Wright.
Mm-hmm.
They asked a couple more questions while taking pictures,
Which typically is the spelling of a name.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the questions they asked is, "Are you a good ghost or bad ghost?" And they took a picture, and once the photo developed, it said the word friend on it, which is so weird.
Yeah.
In the months following this, the two men took a ton of photos, with almost 100 of the photos showing the ghostly writing on it. Usually the writing was in English, but sometimes it appeared in Latin. When they asked out loud, quote, "Where do you go when you're not here?" the reply on the photo was the word flux, F-L-U-X.
Like a flux capacitor?
Like flux means like flux
Yeah,
means like in between.
Yeah.
When they asked who Wright was, the photo showed the words "et alia corpus delicti," which means, quote, "among other things, a murder victim."
Say that again? Corpus what?
Et alia corpus delicti.
Okay.
And corpus delicti in like lawyer talk means victim, I think.
Latin.
Yeah. So that meant, among other things, a murder victim. So now they're thinking Wright was a murder victim.
Okay. And a friend.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
And while this was all going on, they were having parties at their house where people would come with Polaroid cameras. And they realized that the only cameras that would get the ghost writing on it were Spectra cameras that used Spectra film. Those were the only ones.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that
I feel like there's a theory in here somewhere.
Yeah, well, there is. That's coming up too. But they
That's
realized
sus.
that it was only
only
the Spectra cameras and the Spectra film were the ones that would get the writing on it. So at this point, they contacted the Fox television show Sightings, which had just kind of come out. It was kind of new at the time. And you'll see this in the video when you watch the video on our page. Sightings put together a team that included UCLA parapsychologist Carrie Gaynor and a professional photo analyst. I hate this word. And a professional photo analyst named Edson Williams. The team, they did, from what I saw, they did this the perfect way. They did this exactly the right way. They had this team come in with a parapsychologist, a film expert. So it looked like they were actually doing like a good job like a scientific investigation of this. The team decided the best course of action was to do an active investigation in the house. For the investigation, 4 Polaroid cameras and sealed film cartridges were provided by Polaroid. Everything was noted and monitored to prevent any kind of hoax, and Matkowski was worried that the presence wouldn't make itself known in this kind of situation, which seems hoaxy to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but you're going to see this in the video. You're going to see that they have...
conveniently, it doesn't like you.
But
so.
in the video, they also have, in real time, them opening a brand new package of film, putting in the camera, and getting a response. And it's like, how? You know? So
Could they have doctored the camera in some
It's
way?
interesting. No, because these were new cameras that nobody handled.
The camera was new too?
Yeah, like nobody handled these.
That's That's interesting.
Several test photos were taken and nothing showed up. Carrie Gaynor, the parapsychologist, was convinced at this point that this was all a hoax. Hours into the investigation, a friend of the Johns named Marty Elkin, who had several times gotten responses from the ghost. I think Marty's female. I think you see Marty in the video. Hours into the investigation, a friend of the Johns named Marty Elkin, who had several times gotten responses from the ghosts in the past, asked the question, quote, are most spirits good spirits or bad spirits? As the film developed with the entire team watching it, the words, quote, there are numerous remedial lemurs appeared on the picture. They had no idea what the heck this meant, but Huckert later found out that in Roman mythology, lemurs are spirits of the dead. So
this person just hanging out with dictionaries and encyclopedias and like
there are
dropping knowledge
so
on
there are numerous remedial lemurs makes it sound like there are bad ghosts too, but it's just a
Isn't
weird
a lemur
way.
like an animal?
Yeah. So it's like a weird way of saying that.
Lemurs are cute, aren't they?
So at this point, the team was kind of freaking out because the phrase started showing up on film. The sightings crew filmed the team unwrapping a sealed film cartridge and putting it into the camera. A member of the sightings team asked, quote, are you here for John or for the house? And as the photo developed, the words genus loci clearly appeared. This phrase translated from Latin means, quote, the guardian spirit of a place or a man. But to me, L-O-C-I means location. Like, sure. I think that this is the ghost's way of saying it's there because of the house. They continued taking photos, and the images sometimes showed English phrases like, quote, time travel, or, quote, anything is possible, and, quote, John squared, relax, and learn. And John squared refers to the two Johns.
John squared. I love that, actually.
John squared, relax, and learn. One of the
I was getting all mathy.
Yeah. And sometimes Latin phrases like ad literam. Edson Williams, the photo expert who was there, said, quote, I actually watched them ejected out of the Polaroid. There was a moment where I thought, oh my God, I'm in this picture, which made it even spookier. It made me feel like there could indeed be something in the house. Near the end of the night, the team asked, quote, Wright, will you be here with them for a long time? The film developed with the Latin phrase, sed haec prius fuere, which translated into the phrase, quote, all this is over now. It was the last message they received. So weird. According to the book, quote, after the field investigation, Edson Williams brought many of the photographs back to the Brooks Institute for analysis. Using a digital scanner, he was able to move in on the ghost writing and notice that there appeared to be individual fibers in the text. He concluded that the writing might have been created using pulled strands of cotton. In his laboratory, Williams attempted to duplicate the ghost writing. The initial step was to shoot pulled cotton with a 4x5 camera using E6 film. The next step was to pre-expose the Polaroid film. I removed the cover sheet of the Polaroid pack, inserted the transparency, and exposed the Polaroid to the text. I then removed the transparency, reinserted the cover sheet, and loaded the film normally. Using this method, Edson Williams was able to duplicate the ghost writing. However, his method took over an hour to complete and required manipulation of the film, which would have been impossible to hide. Sightings then brought psychic Peter James into the house. As soon as I saw his face, he has gray hair and a black mustache.
Okay.
He was a famous psychic back in those days. Once you see him, you'll be like, oh yeah.
There's always something. I mean, it's still recording.
Yeah.
And the battery looks fine, but the screen just kind of went dim a little bit on the viewfinder on the camera. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to assume it's fine. Hopefully that doesn't mean that's how it's recording now.
I hope not. This is Peter James.
Oh, I don't recognize. He looks like Einstein a little bit.
He does look like Einstein a little bit, but he's a psychic. He was like a well-known psychic. They
Okay.
brought him into the house. The book states, quote, Peter remarked before entering the house, in all my years of delving into the paranormal world, I've never seen an entity present itself in this fashion, but I will say that all things are possible. Once inside, however, the feeling that he was not alone was instantaneous. His legs began to shake. He felt a vibration through his body that Peter claims to feel when he is in the presence of spirits. He also began to receive several names telepathically. He says, quote, I received the names of Gilbert, there is a Robert, and Amelia is also there. I am getting the essence of all three of those names vibrationally. Peter told the assembled group, The two Johns were awestruck. They had already researched the names of the home's previous owners. They had not showed this list to anyone, especially Peter James, and yet Peter had correctly named Gilbert, Robert, and Amelia, 3 of the names that were on the list.
I'm sure they're alleging he had zero knowledge of...
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was pre-internet days, so it might have been
That's
harder to
true.
look up house records, you know?
Yeah.
Peter did not think that any of these 3 people, though, were the ghostwriter. As he walked around the house, Peter stopped in one spot he called a spiritual vortex, a kind of doorway through which he felt spirits were entering the house. I felt a very strong vibration, he said. Something is definitely coming up from the floor. I get a tingling sensation. It's also very cold here. My legs are trembling. It feels like something is coming up from below me, and it's going through my entire body. After this, the Johns started digging test holes on their property, finding shards of Native American pottery, leading them to believe Peter James may have been right about it being a kiva. I don't know what a kiva is. I think that's a Native American
Could be.
something or other. But they started to think that somebody might have been murdered and buried below their house, and that's who this Wright person was. But they weren't able to get to the location of underneath the house where they think the bones are. So then the chapter in the book ends with this, quote, after the sightings investigation, Michael Weber, one of the best close-up magicians in the world, claimed that he could duplicate the ghostwriting phenomenon. In a closed studio, in the presence of sightings host Tim White and a camera crew, Weber was able to produce a photo with the words, "We are here," printed across the front. However, Weber was quick to point out that his ability to duplicate the ghostwriting did not disprove that it could have been caused by some sort of supernatural force. It only proved that the same phenomenon could be reproduced under similar conditions. Weber reviewed the videotape shot inside the house and said he did not notice any of the trademark movements or tells that would have indicated that either Matkowski or Huckert was a professional magician. So now, that was what was in this book. So then I went and researched this online, and there's some stuff about it, but there's a website that I've actually gone to in the past called Ghost Theory. It's a really
I've heard of it,
Yes,
yeah.
it's a really good website, and this person did kind of a deep dive on this, which was really nice. And I found out, I totally forgot about this, on the Ghost Theory site, I found out that Fact or Faked Paranormal Files did an
Still love that
investigation
show.
on that case and determined that it was not a hoax and it was unexplainable. And I wish I could find that. I think like the first
That
season is
episode?
on Netflix, so I might, or on Amazon Prime, but I think you have to buy it.
Or Discovery Plus.
I got rid of Discovery Plus.
Oh.
Yeah. But I don't think it's on there. But Fact or Faked was a good show too.
I loved
that was a
that
great
show.
show.
That was with Ben, right?
Yes.
He's the former
Yeah.
FBI
Yep.
guy.
Yep. And they tried to figure out how to make the ghostwriting using like plexiglass and stuff like that. I remember watching it, but I just forgot it existed. So then, are these comments? Yeah, these are comments on the ghost theory. Like there's 3 or 4 different articles, and I'm going to get to those. But this is the comments on the first article where he brought this thing up. And then somebody said Fact or Fake did an investigation on the case and determined that it was not a hoax. And then somebody replied and said, I just saw that episode. No matter what they did, they could not replicate the ghost writing in the home. What gets me is the fact that they did find bones under the house, but the bones were animal, not human. I really want to know why, if they dragged the whole house with that scanner, they did not find anything else. And then somebody else writes, quote, this is BS. In the first YouTube video, the guy waits until the observer states several questions and then chooses the one that will most likely match the image already stored in the camera. And I guess I get that. Like, he knows that the next picture is going to say yes. So he's waiting for somebody to ask a question where there can be a yes or no response. And then he chooses that one.
Sure.
Somebody else says, I've just seen the Fact or Faked episode on the ghostwriter. And as a photographic expert, I used to work for Nikon as a tech advisor for their customers and dealt with service people as well. I have to say that their tests were not at the least impressive. The use of Polaroids for supernatural events has a long history, with aura photography being the most common. Without having access to their camera or the film, it's hard to say exactly how to fake this ghostwriting, but given some time in a decent workshop, I'm sure you can fake it. It's interesting to note that this happens only to Polaroids and not any other film types, from what I have read, which either means that the ghost has a thing for Polaroid or that it's a very elaborate fake. I, for one, would say that if a ghost did this, and if I were that said ghost, I would care less about brand recognition and scribble away on any and all emulsions coming my way. The interesting thing is that when strangers to the house come to the house, get the same result. What this entire history rests on, it's much harder to explain. The interesting thing is that when strangers to the household come to the house and get the same result, which they do, what this means is that this entire thing rests on a conspiracy with the production company involved. If the Brooks Institute really had been involved in studying the film, I would love to read their write-up on this. And then somebody else writes, if you Google the two homeowners, John Huckert and John Matkowski, you will get led to a site advertising a murder movie. Note that both of these two men are either producers or writers or directors of photography. It seems coincidental that they have photo talents. And then somebody else, and there's a book for sale that has like hundreds of the Polaroid pictures of the Polaroid. Somebody says, "Wow, go figure. The photos are being sold the photos are being sold in a $50 book. That explains all for a profit. You people are easy. I have a bridge to sell you." And then the well-known skeptic Joe Nickel looked into the case and said that it was 100% a fake. But then the person writes, what still makes me question both sides is the fact that when the skeptics did recreate this, the letters in the photograph did not look like the letters on the supposed ghost photos. The skeptics came up with a very hard-looking effect, whereas the Wright photos are more blended into the environment and pictures. If it was faked, I really want to know how they did it. So then on the ghost theory site, the guy that runs the site actually went to one of the book signings or whatever, where John Matkowski was there exhibiting the Polaroid. So then he actually had a little bit of an interview with him. And
so he could actually see the Polaroids?
Yeah. And he talked to John Matkowski, and this is what is from the ghost theory site. So then the host of the ghost theory site says, so tell me, is this activity still happening to this day? And John says, well, against all rumors, yes, it's still happening. In fact, now it's starting to show up on digital cameras. And John says, especially since we've been doing some remodeling in the house, the activity has actually increased, which, if you know anything about ghosts, once you start to remodel a house, that's when stuff starts to ramp up. And then the website, the ghost theory guy says, I remember hearing that Wright had said that he was a murder victim. Do you think the body is buried somewhere around or underneath your house? And John replies, well, we thought about looking, but that would mean we'd have to tear up our floor and do some real damage, so we'll probably never know. And the ghost theory guy says, yeah, that makes sense. And then he says, how was your whole experience with the sightings team and Peter James? And then John replies, it was all as I had feared. They came in promising to help us understand and to get some scientific evaluation on this whole matter. The sightings people just took advantage of the situation. They came in, filmed the phenomena, and just left. After airing the show and getting their ratings, they never returned our calls or followed up with us on the case or anything. The only good thing that came out of it was Peter James. He and I became good friends until he passed away. He always called and visited us. This is why I was so reluctant to show all these Polaroids to the public. These are just some of the hundreds of ghostwriting pictures that I have. The rest are more personal to me, so I don't show them to anybody. So yeah. And then the ghost theory guy writes, it was a brief but good meeting. To this day, I still hold a fascination with this case. Of course, I hold some reservations. I've read some skeptics say that this is all a hoax, that John and his friends are all in on it. John does indeed own a photo lab and a photo studio and has since the beginning of the case. So that's always kind of like a red flag. All I can say was on that Halloween night, I walked away a different person. I felt a great sense of enlightenment and calmness. Somehow, by reading some of Wright's answers to life's greatest questions, I experienced a sublime state of mind. And if you look at some of the pictures, like he writes like inspirational things, like kind of sweet inspirational things, like you would see hanging on somebody's living room wall, which is kind of interesting. I felt assured in my personal belief in karma. Despite the evils that mankind is capable of, somewhere someone is taking notes. And in he showed one of the Polaroids, and the question they asked was, what do you think of people who hate? And then Wright's answer in Latin translated to farewell forever.
Farewell forever.
Farewell forever. If this is some sort of social experiment done by artists to somewhat see and study reactions of the masses, then well done. If this is legitimately paranormal, then congratulations. And then the ghost theory guy says, I've always wanted to do an official interview with John Matkowski about his resident ghost. I was able to ask a few couple quick questions about 2 years ago when I met him during an exhibit. Now I've been in constant contact with him and have planned to go all out and ask him about this whole case. I really am on the fence with this story. I've seen the actual photographs up close and they look very authentic. Authentic in a sense that the actual Polaroid was not physically manipulated. Some of the answers that the ghost that goes by Wright has given are astoundingly chilling yet poetic. So given that I'll be scheduling an interview with John in the upcoming week or so, I want to ask all of you guys questions that you want me to ask him about the case, which was cool. Instead of him just asking questions, he asked people that followed the case. So then these are some of the questions that came up during his interview with John Matkowski. Somebody wanted to know, I would be curious to know whether John Matkowski has tried to profit commercially in any way with his alleged dealings with Wright the Ghost. Is he being paid money for this interview? And then the ghost theory guy says, I can assure you that I did not pay John for this interview. He took the time to answer questions from the community with absolutely no financial gain. All I gained was the interview, a cold beer, and a good conversation on a hot afternoon. John has recently put together a large book with some of the most interesting Polaroids taken. I asked John the question about him profiting off of this. And I said how this could look to many skeptics as a hoax geared towards making money. John's reaction was sincere. He knows what people say about his experience, but doesn't really pay any mind to them. He tells me, quote, yeah, we are selling a book, a very nice looking and very well put together book. As far as making money from this whole thing, no. I've sold a handful of books and the profit was not enough to continue. I put together the book, the graphics and the writing, and it's very time consuming. Somebody else wanted to know, John, have you ever tried any other means of communication such as EVP?
So I just want to say, just because it didn't end up being profitable
doesn't mean that it
they
wasn't
didn't
out
do
for
it for
profit.
profit.
Yeah. So then somebody wants to know if they tried any other means of communication. And the ghost theory guy says, I asked John if he has ever attempted communication through EVP or a Ouija board. John's expression changed from a sad and somber look since talking about Peter James to a more excited one. Yes, we tried that thing, whatever it's called, EVP. Yeah, we tried EVP and Ouija boards. John proceeds to tell me that a psychic had once brought a Ouija board and supposedly fell into a trance and said that they were the spirit of a Tongva native. Tongvas were Native American people that inhabited the Los Angeles area and surrounding lands. John was skeptical of this since he and his roommate had done research a while ago and discovered that the Tongvas did not inhabit that particular area outside of downtown Los Angeles. But the EVP we got, that was clear, John says. I forget what we asked Wright, but the answer was captured on tape and was very audible to everyone in the room. It was just one word, and that one word was once. Somebody else wants to know, what changes, if any, have they noticed over time regarding the phenomena? And the ghost theory guy says, the only changes that John could really point out was the fact that his dog acts weird in a certain spot of the home. It's been told to John that there is a vortex of some sort near his hallway. This was told to him by several different psychics in the past. The strange thing is that John had owned several dogs in the past, but none of them have displayed the actions of his current dog. He says, it's as if he's afraid of a certain spot in the hallway. He will sit there, whine for a little bit, and act as if he was about to leap over a pit or something. He also sits and stares into thin air or certain places in the house. But I'm sure Lucy does that too. Somebody else wants to ask, why do you feel that the show Sightings wronged you? And then the ghost theory guy says, John tells me the story of what really went down. He had seen an episode of the show and noticed that during the program they asked, quote, if you have any photographs or videos of a ghost, submit them to us. John thought that if he did this, the show's researchers and producers would help him figure out what was going on in his home. A few days after he submitted a couple of photographs, two producers showed up at his home. They brought with them their own Polaroid camera and snapped a few shots while asking questions. John was pretty sure that they wouldn't get anything the first time, but lo and behold, out came a few answers from Wright. This is the first time we actually got something real, the producer said. They offered John some money for his story. The Sightings crew brought in Peter James and did their taping. After it was all done and aired, no one from the show actually tried to help John figure out what was going on in his home, except for Peter James. He stayed in contact and visited him and his roommate often. In a way, John feels that him reaching out to the television show for help has left him with a bad impression. He feels used. One of the last questions that somebody had for John was about it being faked, about what skeptics say. So the ghost theory guy says, the last question I had was possibly the most controversial one, and that one that John was waiting for. Joe Nickel, a writer for Skeptical Inquirer Science magazine, has often stated that the Wright case was a hoax, that someone with access to a photo lab and some knowledge of photo development could create the so-called ghost writing. John appeared somewhat upset when I brought up Joe Nickel, and that someone out there had replicated the ghostly Polaroid writing in a lab. He said, I have seen those pictures, and all I can say is that they don't resemble the Wright Polaroids. The ones that were done in a lab are more rigid and straight, as opposed to the smoky ones that have more depth and fluid motion to them. And they do. Like the writing has like a weird, I can see where they said it looks like cotton. Like it's got this weird, like cloudy look. If they were faked, I don't know how they were done. Anyways, back to the story. John says, yes, anyone can fake these with a photo lab and equipment, but the ones that we took were instant. There was no tampering of the film, no switching out of the film. The results were instant and in front of many witnesses. What pisses me off about the skeptics is that no one, not ever, has contacted me to say that they would like to witness this phenomenon in real life. Wow, I said. So Joe Nickel and the person who recreated these pictures in the lab have not contacted you or seen this for themselves. And then John says, well, Nickel did want to come out and investigate this, but this was after the fact that he publicly stated that we were hoaxers, so I was not going to allow him in my home. John was never contacted before.
Fair.
I get it, but, you know, and the thing is, like, skeptics, no matter what happens, they're going to find a reason for it, you know, so I get it. John was never contacted beforehand to study the phenomenon, but clearly made out to be a hoaxer. He said, I would have loved if any one of these skeptics would have came in and did their investigation, but the bottom line is that no one did. John is now at peace with what resides in his home. He does not communicate with Wright as often as he used to. His feelings of this whole ordeal are past the point of initial excitement. He knows Wright is still in the home and is still living with him. He knows that by watching his dog react. This is the last year, 2009, when the photos will be displayed. After the past few years of displaying them, John has gotten too much negative attention. So then comments under that interview, somebody writes, quote, I saw an episode of Fact or Faked where John takes a photo and asks a question that receives a response in Latin, and then he reads the response without hesitation, and a stretch of 4 to 5 letters in the last word were on a white background and barely legible. It's then translated on the spot in little time. People without knowledge of Latin would have a hard time pronouncing these words clearly. So for someone with supposedly no knowledge of Latin to produce this response, reading it without butchering the words from a barely legible photo and translating it in minutes, sounds fishy to me.
That's a little sus.
And that is a little sus. And then somebody else responds. It says, apparently one of the people involved with this case had an assistant who demonstrated for me the technique they used, which involved going into a dark room, carefully opening the film package to be able to reseal it, and using a Q-tip and developer chemicals to print out the message on the film card in advance, putting the film back into the package, and then resealing the film until the demonstration of the process. And then somebody asks, has anyone bothered to ask Joe Nickel for his side of the story? If Joe Nickel dismissed this as a hoax prior to the investigation, I totally see why. I'm a published photographer, which means that I know a little about optics and photography, but I would probably toss them out as a hoax at first glance as well, but that doesn't mean that Joe did. What do people that make extraordinary claims expect? Any reasonable person would expect these types of claims to be questioned, if not totally dismissed initially. To say that so-and-so dissed me so I'll not have anything to do with them is childish or simply a very lame excuse for not having them investigate. This is probably most assuredly a hoax. The only question for me is, how did they do this? I suspect that more than one technique was employed, judging from the few photos I've seen. And then somebody else said, just putting this out there, I found this on a website. It said, quote, gallery owner John Matkowski grew up as a shy, quiet bookworm on the mean streets of South Philadelphia while attending Catholic school. Obsessed with books and horror films as a child, he became interested in photography and film. His supportive father purchased cameras and darkroom equipment, enabling the young teenager to shoot movies and develop photos in his bathroom. So there's a lot pointing towards this possibly. And then the ghost theory guy responds. It says, I'm not defending nor proclaiming this to be authentic. I'm just answering the questions and misunderstandings. Yes, I have mentioned before that Matkowski does run a photo lab. It's a black and white lab, and that he's a filmmaker and writer. The films and photography he does are not associated with the paranormal. The shows that John and he and his friends have been on only a handful of times since this whole ordeal started shows that he's not out for publicity. Also, some skeptics act like everything that is not explained by science should not exist, period. For the sake of investigative practices and for the sake of science, one should always examine and fully investigate both sides of the story. Not just assume that it's a hoax because someone in a lab somewhere was able to produce a not completely similar but close enough effect. I think John Matkowski contacted Sightings because in the early 90s, that show had a good reputation. There were no reality shows like this back in those days. The paranormal that time was far from going mainstream like it later did. I think the bottom line is that no skeptic really tried to visit the location. No one can explain the hundreds of witnesses that took pictures during their parties and got some writing on their pictures. We won't know for sure what this case really holds, not until there is an invitation to the home. So that's what I got. So now theories. I have 3 theories.
Okay.
Theory number 1, it's a hoax. Is that what you think?
I don't know.
When I watch interviews with him and listen to him, he does not set off my BS detector. He doesn't. But there's so much circumstantial evidence that this could be a hoax.
Just his expertise and ability.
When you watch the Sightings thing, it sounds like the film they put in the camera had never left. Like, there's a chain of custody of who had this, and it's like nobody had this film package.
Hoaxed. Yeah,
they opened it, they put it in the camera, took a picture, and then it showed up on the film.
I would never fully believe it till I saw it myself.
That's the same way I feel.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing for a TV show to say, hey, maybe this will crank up our ratings.
Exactly.
If we but and they showed them opening the film package, but it's like, was there any moment when the Johns were storing the film before this that they could have that John Squared that they could have opened, slit open the film thing, wrote something on the picture, and then sealed it, made it look sealed again?
I don't know.
It's just that so many people, watching the Sightings thing makes you I went into this being totally skeptical, and I've kind of come.
I can't wait to watch the video again.
I've come across thinking it might be legitimate, but it sucks that there's so much.
There's enough doubt.
There's so much against it.
Yeah, there's enough to plant that seed of doubt.
But yeah, the fact that you can barely make out the Latin writing, and then John, who has supposedly no background in Latin, says the words perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Seems
that's fair.
And that his bookshelf there had a Latin dictionary on it.
Mm-hmm.
So there is so much that points towards it being a hoax, but I cannot, in good conscience, say that I'm 100% certain that it's a hoax.
I'm with you on that.
Theory number 2, it's a ghost. It's a ghost. And this is where the whole thing about it having to be Spectra cameras and Spectra film. It's like a skeptic would say that there's something about that film or that camera that makes it easier to hoax.
To hoax, yeah.
But then a believer in this would say there's something about that film that spirits are able to manipulate the emulsive chemicals in the film to make it say something. It's
like the perfect digital recorder for EVP exists.
That's the thing, is that one of the podcasts I listened to, I'm going to see if I can find the name of it. But they talked, it was actually a really decent one. I've listened to 3 of them. Some of them were so-so. There was one really good one that they said, what if this was like the Holy Grail, where this film, for some reason, could be manipulated by a spirit, and they don't make this film anymore, And it's like, what if we've lost this possible communication technique because we don't produce this film anymore? And while I think the photo, I think it looks dumb. I think the photos look fake.
They look hoaxy.
Yeah. But then I'm like, that's so dumb for it to write on a photograph. But then how is it any dumber for EVP to show up on a recorder when it shows up on somebody's but not somebody else's? Why is that acceptable, but a ghost writing on a photograph?
It would be kind of like if an EVP came through sounding like, ooh.
Yeah. Like
your
that.
Typical ghost sound.
Yeah. Exactly.
What they allegedly sound like in cartoons.
So, what if that film, for some reason, was able to be manipulated by a spirit? It's possible. It's very possible. why do some digital recorders or why do some recorders pick up ghost voices better than others? Maybe something in the mechanism.
Yeah.
But what if this film stock was the holy grail of being able to communicate with the ghost and we just don't make it anymore? And the fact that so many people supposedly witnessed this with their own film, nobody touched the film. It's hard to, but I don't know for a fact that all these people witnessed it. They could be saying they had these parties where all this stuff happened.
Yeah.
It's nothing for them to get 2 or 3 of their friends to go along with this story and say, yeah, I was at this big party. So I can't, like I would love to go back and do this myself, knowing nobody touched this film, putting in the camera and getting stuff. So a ghost, something paranormal is one of the theories. And the third theory I think is interesting, and that it's a psychic thing, that it's the person that's believing so much that this is going to show up on the film that they're psychically causing this image to show
like
up on the
tulpa,
film.
in a way.
Yeah, it's like a psychokinesis kind of thing where you're imprinting something on the film. It's not a ghost, it's your psychic ability.
Either way, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's a ghost or whether it's that, it's still fascinating. But
interesting.
I don't know.
Never thought of that.
That's what I got. What do you think? What do you think about this? Like I said, I can show you. Like if you do a search for the pictures, like that just looks so fake.
It does. It looks
fake. So fake.
Even the way the words are written, it's like a spooky font.
Yeah.
Like there's probably a font like
there's
that
Peter
now.
James, and they would get like these random cloudy looking things, which is weird because that doesn't look fake.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, because they said that
it looks like actual things in the room.
Yeah, and they said that writing or something on the film would leave indentations on the back of the Polaroid, and they said there's no indentations. It's not on the film, it's in the picture. Whatever is they're looking at is in the photograph. It's not on the photograph. So I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I feel like there's a high possibility that it's a hoax, but I can't say that with 100% certainty.
No. And like I said, I flip-flop so many times on this. And right now I'm leaning towards it's legitimate. I feel dumb saying that because it smells so hoaxy, but at the same time, I don't know.
I want to watch the video again because I haven't seen that since it was probably first out.
It's a really fascinating case. And it's like, I don't know. I like the idea that one film was one that spirits could manipulate, like digital cameras. They can't show up in digital photos like this,
right?
So I don't know.
Hey, somebody's got one of those cameras in a shoebox in their closet.
Yeah, if you
with
got
some film.
Yeah, but they said what sucks is that.
I'm sure that I listened to
the recent interview with John Huckert, and he said he can't say what TV show, but he said a TV show had just come to the house, and they had and they thought it was funny that Spectra is kind of like Spectre.
Spectre, yes, I had the same thought.
So they said that a group came there with Spectra film from 1992, and of course nothing showed up on the photographs because the film is bad because it's so old.
Right.
And I think they still make kind of Polaroid-y cameras.
Yeah, they do. They totally make Polaroid cameras.
But it sounds like it had to be this
I had one that we used in investigations. I don't know what happened to it, though.
Yeah. I would love to actually bring a Polaroid and a camera on an investigation. I think you've mentioned that you wanted to bring a Polaroid camera.
I used to. I've used it.
But it's also like expensive because Polaroid film is expensive.
It is.
But as far as the psychic imprinting of the message, I guess, I don't know. Like,
how is that any less plausible than a ghost doing it? It's the same thing.
Like if they said that if John Squared took the film and went to their dark lab for half an hour and then came back, it would be one thing. But it sounds like they didn't have time to, like somebody said they could do it on this one picture, put it back you reseal it somehow, put it back in there, and wait for somebody to ask a question that they knew the answer on that picture would kind of pertain to. But that just seems like so much work, and they didn't really get any kind of fame or money off of this. And you think by now they would have been like, oh yeah, we just did that for fun. But no, John Huckert still claims that this is 100% legitimate. So I don't know on this one. I'm leaning towards this is legitimate. I know that sounds dumb, and
I don't think so.
But it's just, I don't know. Like, I can't say either way, but I lean towards it's legitimate, even though I think it looks so fakey. But how is that fair to okay EVPs, and not okay this. So that's ghostwriter. I don't know. I don't know what else.
No, that's good.
Okay.
It's interesting.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
Let us know what you guys think of this. I think this might be one that people would comment a lot on. I think a lot of people are going to think it's hoaxy. But again, if you're not a member, if you're not on Facebook, go on YouTube and then search in YouTube for sightings ghostwriter.
If you give me the link, I'll put it in the YouTube video.
And one of the first things that will show up is like the 20-minute segment with...
Included in the show notes when you post it on Podbean.
Song choices? Do you have any?
I do. I have one.
Ooh,
Who knew?
I got two. And a question, but we answered this question before, but we'll say it again.
Okay. Hold on. I just had to look because I see I got a message from Brittany. I wonder if that's our listener who sent us a story. I'm not sure. Okay. So my song choice, I was going down the YouTube music rabbit hole last night, as I tend to do on like a Friday or Saturday night. And I came across as a suggestion a live performance by Casey Chambers.
Never heard.
Covering Lose Yourself by Eminem.
That's interesting.
And it's the kind of thing where you're like, there's no way this is going to work. How would you even do that? She's a singer. She has a banjo. And you're thinking, how is this going to work? It's like an 8-minute song.
Yeah.
And it is a slow burn. But I am telling you, that is one of the best things I've heard in a really long time.
Yeah. It's incredible. That's like Obadiah Parker's version of Outkast's Hey Ya. That's just him and an acoustic guitar. And you're going to be like, how is this going to work?
Yeah.
And then people listen to it.
And then they
like,
kill it.
And they're like, oh my God, I like this more than Outkast's
I've had
version.
it in my head like all night and all morning now because it's so good. And she's so passionate about it too.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah,
cool.
It's very good. Well, I'm gonna watch the whole thing, guys. It's 8 minutes. I'm telling you, it's a slow burn, but it is so worth it. It's so good.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
My first one is going down the YouTube rabbit hole, and I don't remember how I stumbled across this, but when this CD came out back, I think in the 90s, it was definitely the 90s. When this CD came out, I think I checked it out from the library because I liked her popular songs. And I listened to this CD and I was like, this song is so good. I'm like, this should be the song off the album. And I forgot all about the song and it showed up on when I was going down a YouTube rabbit hole because I never knew there was a video for this song, and apparently it was taken down for the longest time, and now the video is back out, and I love the video. But some comments under this song, somebody writes, quote, truly one of the best songs of the 90s, and I agree. I think this is one of the best little-known song of the 90s. Somebody else writes, quote, how is this not a single? It's so much better than the two overplayed songs she is known for. Somebody else writes, quote, this song pointed my life in a very different direction. I'm impressed with how many other people have been touched by it. Somebody else writes, quote, this song is such a gift to us all. Powerful, prosaic, and profound. I play it for teens in drug rehab, and they always start by rolling their eyes at it, but by the end of the song, you can see that it has struck a chord with them. Thank you so much for this. Somebody else writes, quote, if that bridge part near the end of the song doesn't make you cry or touch you emotionally, you're a robot. Man, I'm glad I'm not you. And then somebody else writes, quote, I can relate to this song so much. Like so many in this world, I've been beaten down emotionally a number of times in my life. Often, though, I find that my own worst enemy is indeed me. The song is true art and so much better than the crap that's put out today. And it is the song Me by Paula Cole. And she's known more for Where Have All the Cowboys Gone and
the Dawson's Creek
song. But this song, Me, is so pretty. It's such a good song. And I love the video. I had never seen the video. And it's her in this house. And it starts out and she's wearing like a red dress and all the walls are painted red. And as the song goes on, all the walls change. It goes like rainbow colors, red to orange to yellow. And her outfit changes and the colors change. And I love this video. And I love the song. Like near the end of the song, it gets so good. And it's just like such a perfect song. So my first song choice for this episode is the song Me by Paula Cole. And it's about how, you know, people can be mean to you and stuff, but you are the person that is the worst to yourself, you know? And
That's
my second song,
true.
I think I might have done this one already. Like I love this song. Some of the YouTube comments under this song, somebody writes, quote, I know this is weird for a dancey song, but this song is so perfect and beautiful that it makes me cry sometimes. Somebody else writes, quote, this song celebrates having a crush, possibly one of the most bonding and euphoric emotions a person can have. Somebody else writes, quote, I love how the song starts out in mono, like it's being played on a radio, and then it just builds from there. Somebody else writes, quote, the vibe of the music is how it feels to be in love in the beginning. Somebody else writes, quote, I swear this song exists in its own bubble. You've got the amazing 70s, 80s inspired funk/soul sample. You've got futuristic robotic vocals, an EDM beat, an awesome Supertramp inspired breakdown, climaxing with an amazing synth/guitar/whatever the hell it is hybrid solo that would make Eddie Van Halen proud. It draws from so many different genres and blends them together seamlessly with a great song about longing that's accentuated by the composition and feel of the music. This song, in my opinion, is one of the most creative and perfect songs ever made. It's so effing good. And I love this song. It is the song Digital Love by Daft Punk. Like, I feel like this song and One More Time by Daft Punk are the songs that kind of got me into dancey music. Like the first time I heard One More Time, I'm like, this is really good. And it wasn't my kind of music. But then on the same album, I heard Digital Love, and I just adore this song. So those are my two songs, Me by Paula Cole and Digital Love by Daft Punk. And our question from a listener, we've already had this one. Somebody writes, quote, I think you guys were asked this already, but in your opinion, what is the best video game ever made?
Oh, best video game ever made?
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't played a lot. I've played a small portion of video games several times. Like, I'm playing Skyrim again right now because I've never actually completed the game.
Really? I
never
completed Skyrim.
There's too many side missions, and I take them all because I love doing the side missions. I never get to the final mission. Silent Hill, I'm just going to say Silent Hill, just as a general game. Silent Hill 2 was my favorite out of like
Silent
all
Hill
the
2 was good.
Hills.
Silent Hill 2
I've tried to
was good.
replay it though. Wow, it's hard to play. Like the control is bad. Like the controller is terrible. Just like the movement.
Sometimes I
and
go back and play games I really like, and I'm like, oof. I'm like, how did I?
So hard to play
how did I
it.
deal with this?
Wow, video games have come a long way. But
Yes.
I'll say Silent Hill. There's so many other horror genre games out there that I've never played that I'd love to try. But The Last of Us is really good too.
That's what I want to talk to you about too when we go off air.
Okay.
I struggled with this because mine's almost a 2. Mine's almost a tie, but I'm not making it a tie. I'm going to say the second best video game ever made was Witcher 3. I mean, that is such...
I've never played any of the Witchers, and I would love to.
It is such an amazing game. Like the
Love the show.
The amount of stuff in there and how choices you make matter, you know.
I would love that game, I'm sure.
You would. But like the combat, like I love everything about that game, but I cannot pick that as my all-time favorite game because my number one, what I think the all-time best video game ever made is the first Life is Strange.
Yeah, you've talked about that.
I just actually got done playing it like a 4th playthrough, and I'm just blown away. Like one of the like when you watch the trailer for the game and they're taking like parts of people's reviews, like one of the review parts they take out is somebody saying, I want to live in this game. And I 100% agree with that. Like the music is beautiful. The art of the game is beautiful. The choices you have to make, some of them are pretty heartbreaking. And when you watch the trailer, it doesn't look like a dark game, but wow, it gets dark towards the last chapter of the game. But it's such a good game.
What platform is that?
It's on like PlayStation 4.
Okay.
That's what I want to talk to you about. I want to give you guys my PlayStation 4 to play stuff on.
Yeah.
Because I'm finishing like a playthrough now of the prequel/sequel to Life is Strange. And when I'm done with that, you guys can use it to play whatever.
Okay.
But
you guys, Jim doesn't play. He used to play sports, but he doesn't anymore.
But the first thing you need to play is Life is Strange because I
would
really want you to play that game.
I would love to play
Think of it, it's like a Silent Hill where you're walking around and there's not gunfighting or anything like that.
Monsters.
There's no monsters. It's like talking. It's like making choices. And
yeah, I would love
sometimes you have to use the top controller to reverse time to make something different. And there's no fighting.
I love games where I can just explore.
That's what this one is.
And I get annoyed when I have to fight something.
No, that's what this one is because like there's the video, the one that I have is the director's cut of the game, and it's like a movie where it has director's commentary. And they said there's over 40,000 lines of dialogue in the game.
Wow.
Because you'll be like walking around Chloe's bedroom and you'll just happen to like tilt the right way where you can click on something and it's like a photograph, and then you click on it and you hear Max talking about the photograph. And like what you'll like is that every now and then there's like achievements in the game for when you take pictures. Like a box will come up saying photograph, where you'll be in just the right spot where there'll be something that you should photograph, and you get like achievement points for photographing it. But it's very much an exploration game, but it's just such an amazing game. Like, I cannot say enough good things about this game. I listen to the soundtrack in my car all the time. It's just beautiful. So that is it's not a video game per se, because there's no shooting, there's no fighting really. It's just a really good, the story is amazing. It's just such a good game. Life is Strange 2 was pretty good. Life is Strange 3 I think you would like, where the girl's like superpower is like she's an empath, where she can like see what somebody's emotions are and then like take on the emotions.
Okay.
But such good games. And they have a new game that I think they're called Don't Nod. They have a new game coming out, but it's just for PlayStation 5, but it looks exactly like Life is Strange. And it almost makes me want to buy a PlayStation 5 just for that game.
I've been itching for new games.
But so the next time I come down, I'll bring my PlayStation 2. We'll hook it up.
PlayStation 4.
4. Yeah. We'll see on my PlayStation 2. I still have that. But I cannot say enough good things about Life is Strange. If you've never played it, it's well worth it. It's an amazing game. Max, so good. That's
cool.
all. Like that's. I mean, there's a lot of good video games, but I feel like they're not as good as they used to be. Like now everything is so online and monetized, and it's just not.
I miss being able to play a good old-fashioned multiplayer game where you're sitting in the same room on the same console with, like, Jim and I used to love to play, like, Baldur's Gate games together, back in the day.
Yep.
Now it's only co-ops.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It takes away from people who actually live in the same house who want to play and don't want to have to play on separate systems or TVs or computers or whatever.
I miss the days when you were playing a game and there was no internet connectivity. It was just you and the game. And now like everything is multiplayer, and it's just, I know I sound like
co-op, right?
I know like I sound like an old man shouting at the clouds, but I just don't.
Yeah.
I miss those days of video games.
You're never going to catch me with a headset talking to somebody on the internet while I play a video game.
I've done that with Fortnite. I'll admit that I've
never played Fortnite.
I like Fortnite. I mean, I did not think I would like it, but it's fun. Like it's fun. You know, I get annoyed getting blasted away by 9-year-olds calling me noob and all this stuff, telling me to get good. But yeah, so I think that's it for today.
Yeah.
Did we passed the 2-minute mark or 2-minute?
Yeah,
2-hour
we
mark.
definitely made it 2 minutes. 2 hours,
Start doing
11
a 2-minute
minutes.
podcast.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Those are called shorts.
So thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you liked this episode. Let us know what you think about Third Man Factor or Ghost Rider.
Hope the camera didn't go dim for no reason.
The camera didn't go dim for no reason.
Hopefully I can fix it post.
And now I think we jump to the side sessions.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for listening. I'm actually tired from this episode. I usually don't get pooped from doing the episodes, but this one pooped me out. We will be back in 2 weeks.
Yep.
I think a Strange States episode.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, we're going to see. And let us know what you guys think. And thank you again so much for listening. Thank you to people that subscribe on Ko-Fi. You guys are amazing. Like,
yeah,
I still can't believe that you pay us for this. Nonsense that we spout. But thank you so much.
Agreed.
And we love you guys. We love our Strange family. You guys are amazing, and you guys are why we do this. So we love you, and thank you so much. And from Krista and I down in the Strange cellar. Until next time, stay strange.